Chapter 661. In the azure continent of Grand Xia, the flames of war rose up as experts from all directions gathered. The Ouyang aristocrat clan of the Azure Continent and the Jiang clan of the Wind Continent were going to form a marriage alliance, inviting all the transcendent powers of the Azure Continent to participate in the banquet. As for whether they would show up or not, that was another matter altogether. The meaning of this marriage alliance was self-evident. All the transcendent powers of Grand Xia were well aware of it. This marriage alliance was no different from an alliance, expressing the determination of both transcendent powers to advance and retreat together. On the surface, this was merely a wedding between Ouyang Zichen and Jiang Ting, but the hidden meaning was that this was a union between the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Jiang clan. Right now, the Ouyang aristocrat clan had 3 celestial phenomenon ascendants while the Jiang clan had 2. Once they formed an alliance, they would have a total of 5 celestial phenomenon ascendants. In addition to the foundations of the 2 aristocrat clans, they would instantly become the strongest power in Grand Xia, sweeping through everything before them. To Grand Xia, this was undoubtedly a tempest. Hence, it was unknown how many transcendent powers gathered in the Azure Continent. In the Azure Continent, there were 5 transcendent powers. They were Ouyang Aristocrat Clan, Multidirectional Thunderwind Sect, Azure Emperor Palace, Mystic Maiden Palace and Sword Extinction Sect. Back then when Qin Wenyan was cultivating in the unmatched realm, he had already met with the geniuses of these 5 transcendent powers, and had even fought against several of them. After staying in the bamboo forest for a day, Qin Wenyan returned to the Azure Continent and stayed in the unmatched realm, paying a visit to the unmatched elders. The relationship between him and the unmatched elders wasn't bad, but they still didn't care about external affairs, including the old man who had once helped him before. Qin Wenyan discovered that this old fellow actually had a cultivation base at the celestial phenomenon realm, yet he chose to remain hidden in the unmatched realm. No wonder the status of the unmatched realm was so transcendent. There were so many experts here, yet they didn't have the ambition to rule the world. Today, Qin Wenyan brought Fan Lu and Old Xing to the Mystic Maiden Palace as guests. During the era of the Azure Emperor, Old Xing was already in charge of punishment. Even now, his cultivation base had already broken through to the celestial phenomenon realm. He and Fairy Qingmei were the pillars of the Azure Emperor Palace. Fan Lu and the little princess of the Mystic Maiden Palace, Xian Xian, had already confirmed their relationship back then. Now that Xian Xian had also grown up, her status in the Mystic Maiden Palace had also risen. She easily led Qin Wenyan and the others to a great hall in the Mystic Maiden Palace. There were many experts from the Mystic Maiden Palace here, and their gazes all landed on Old Xing, who was beside Qin Wenyan. This old man had his eyes closed and seemed harmless, but everyone could clearly feel the faint pressure radiating from him. There was a high possibility that this old man was at the celestial phenomenon realm. Naturally, Qin Wenyan was one of the main targets of observation. Back then in Grand Xia, this man caused a huge commotion, splitting apart the Pill Emperor Hall with his sword, shaking the entire Grand Xia. But after that he suddenly vanished without a trace, vanishing without a trace for several years. Now that he had returned, that carefree countenance of his had an unfathomable smile on it. Back then, the top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings of Grand Xia, the young man who split apart the Pill Emperor Hall with his sword, what cultivation base had he reached now? Outside the Great Hall, a group of silhouettes walked over. The woman in the lead seemed to be around 30 years of age and had a mature countenance, exuding an aura of purity. This was none other than the palace mistress of the Mystic Maiden Palace. The palace mistress of the Mystic Maiden Palace walked to the main seat in the Great Hall and sat down. She surveyed the old man who had his eyes closed beside Qin Wenyan as her eyes gleamed with sharpness. "Are you Old Xing, the one in charge of punishment under the Azure Emperor?" "Palace mistress has good judgment." Old Xing opened his eyes as a terrifying pressure swept over the Great Hall, causing the experts of the Mystic Maiden Palace to involuntarily tremble. The eyes of the palace mistress gleamed with sharpness. After which, her gaze landed on Qin Wenyan as she smiled. "I've long heard of Qin Wentian's name since a few years ago. You are truly a young heaven chosen. I wonder what brings you here today? I'm here to gift your mystic maiden palace some good fortune. Qin Wendian smiled. The expert beside the palace mistress coldly laughed. Back then, although the Azure Emperor faction was controlled by the Azure Emperor, isn't it a little too arrogant to say that you are gifting good fortune to my mystic maiden palace? The palace mistress had a smile on her face, but she didn't reply. Before the marriage, the Ouyang aristocrat clan was already the strongest power in the Azure continent. After the marriage, there's no need for me to say anything more. These few years, Qin, have been to many places. The other two empires that are adjacent to Grand Xia, Grand Shang and Grand Zhou, were both at their peak. As long as they wanted to, they could easily destroy Grand Xia with a flip of their hands. It's just that my Grand Xia is a place of desolation, nobody is willing to step into it. Even the Xi clan of Grand Shang actually dared to occupy the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, and this wasn't even the full strength of the Xi clan. How ridiculous is this? Qin Wendian slowly spoke. Grand Xia is lacking in cultivation arts and innate techniques. The experts with great talent are all leaving the desolation grounds, while the experts in the desolation grounds are still complacent. It's only a matter of time before they are destroyed. What arrogant words! The female who spoke earlier berated. She stared at Qin Wendian. A mere junior dares to spout such arrogant words? Who do you think you are? When the palace mistress of the Mystic Maiden Palace and the other experts arrived, Qin Wendian had been sitting there the entire time. He didn't even stand up to welcome them. This point already caused them to be extremely unhappy. Old Xing was a celestial phenomenon ascendant and was also a senior character, yet he still acted like this. Although Qin Wendian's name shook Grand Xia, wasn't his attitude a little too arrogant? Did he really think that he was on the same level as the palace mistress? Palace mistress of the Azure Emperor Palace, Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian faintly spoke. His gaze swept over to the female who spoke as he coldly replied, I'm talking to the palace mistress. When did it become your turn to interrupt? Impudent! That female berated. Right now, the Azure Emperor Palace is still in the Azure continent. I'm afraid your title as the palace mistress of the Azure Emperor Palace was self-conferred, right? As the sound of her voice faded, a terrifying might gushed forth from Old Xing. He stepped out and instantly, a stifling pressure bore down on the female who spoke as he abruptly smashed out with his palm. The palace mistress of the Mystic Maiden Palace waved her hands as a beam of cold light slammed into the palm imprint, causing the entire space to tremble. Old Xing, Qin Wendian called out. Old Xing retreated to his side as though nothing had happened. We are guests, it's not my wish to be the host. Qin Wendian faintly spoke. It's just that the people of the Mystic Maiden Palace are so knowledgeable, how disappointing. Just take it that I made a wasted trip here. After speaking, he stood up only to see the palace mistress of the Mystic Maiden Palace interjected, You haven't finished what you wanted to say earlier. What kind of good fortune are you planning to gift to my Mystic Maiden Palace? The chaotic era of Grand Xia is coming to an end, and it will definitely be unified. There will be a few factions controlling the Grand Xia Empire. If Palace Mistress is willing, you can choose one of them. Qin Wendian stared at the Palace Mistress as he spoke. The eyes of the Palace Mistress flashed with sharpness. Although she was prepared in her heart, she didn't expect that Qin Wendian would actually dare to speak such arrogant words. The female who spoke earlier coldly laughed. Simply ridiculous. Palace Mistress, although this young man's talent is extraordinary, he has already lost his sense of self and doesn't know the immensity of the heavens and earth. I'll wait and see. The Palace Mistress of the Mystic Maiden Palace was silent for a moment before she smiled. She truly wanted to see how Qin Wendian would unify Grand Xia. Sorry for the disturbance. Qin Wendian smiled. After which, he turned and walked out of the Great Hall. He only thought of the Mystic Maiden Palace because of the relationship between Fan Lu and Xian Exin. But since the other party didn't trust him, there was nothing more to say. Palace Mistress, this young man is too arrogant and rude. Are we going to let him leave just like that? That female spoke again when she saw Qin Wendian preparing to leave. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with sharpness when he heard this. He abruptly turned and stomped the ground as a terrifying aura gushed forth. His eyes stared straight at the female who spoke, causing the female's eyes to sink into the depths of purgatory. Frog at the bottom of a well. A voice thundered out like thunder from the clear skies. After which, the female was flung through the air by an immense force, slamming heavily into the ground as she coughed out a mouthful of blood, her countenance as pale as paper. When she inclined her head, the only thing Qin Wentian left for her was the back view of his back. The experts of the Mystic Maiden Palace all felt their hearts pounding violently, only a few words echoed in their minds. Frog at the bottom of a well. These words were spoken to the female, but weren't they also spoken to the entire Mystic Maiden Palace as well? That female's cultivation base was at the 9th level of Heavenly Dipper. Qin Wentian stood at his original location and directly sent her flying. What was laughable was that she actually dared to say that Qin Wentian didn't know any etiquette. The Heaven Chosen whose name shook Grand Xia back then had already grown to a level she didn't even dare to imagine. Palace Mistress. The gazes of the experts turned to the Palace Mistress, only to see that she didn't give the order to stop Qin Wentian. Her gaze landed on Xian Xen who hadn't left yet as she asked, "Did Fan Le talk to you about Qin Wentian's matters in the outside world?" "Yes, I did." Xian Xen nodded. "Tell me the most important things," the Palace Mistress stated. Fan Le said that they went to a place named the Royal Sacred Region. That place is governed by the Royal Sacred Sect and there are countless transcendent powers there. Any one of them could easily annihilate the transcendent powers of Grand Xia. When he met Qin Wentian, it was during a tempering exercise in the immortal martial realm. All the geniuses of the Royal Sacred Region would gather there and compete for the rankings. Qin Wentian obtained the top ranking of the immortal martial realm and is also a disciple of a transcendent power, the Battle Sword Sect, as well as the foster son of an ancient emperor. However, I don't know much about these transcendent powers, but I do know that they should be stronger than our Mystic Maiden Palace. Xian Xen tugged at the corner of her robe as she spoke. She didn't expect that Qin Wentian would have a conflict with the Mystic Maiden Palace. However, when the Palace Mistress heard Xian Xen's words, her heart trembled as she felt a chill running down her spine. After a long time, she sighed. She knew that the Mystic Maiden Palace might have lost a great opportunity. From now onwards, the Mystic Maiden Palace would no longer have the authority to speak in Grand Xia. "Xian Xen, why didn't you tell me earlier?" The Palace Mistress sighed. "I'm not very clear myself, and you didn't ask me," Xian Xen replied in a low voice. The Palace Mistress had a bitter smile on her face as she shook her head. "Xian Xen, treat Fan Le better in the future. Hurry up and chase after them." Xian Xen nodded her head as she walked out. Qin Wentian didn't really mind this matter. If the Mystic Maiden Palace trusted him, he would allow them to become the pillar of support for Grand Xia. But since they didn't trust him, it didn't matter either way. The Azure Continent was a gathering place. On the surface, the transcendent powers from all over the Ouyang aristocrat clan were all gathered together. But in the dark, there was a storm brewing in the dark. Qin Wentian's forces had all arrived in the Azure Continent, and they were all gathering together. Chapter 662. In the Azure Continent, the morning sun was filled with vitality, its golden rays cascading down on the earth. Today, the Azure Continent was bustling with activity. Everywhere, people were moving towards a certain direction, and that direction was none other than the location of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Today, the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan would have a marriage alliance. The chosen of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, Ouyang Zichen, would marry Jiang Ting of the Jiang clan. A bright red carpet was laid out from afar, all the way to the Ouyang aristocrat clan's castle. Guards could be seen on both sides of the road, with a sentry every 3 steps. From afar, there were many experts descending from the skies, stepping on the wide ground as they walked along the red carpet, heading towards the Ouyang aristocrat clan. For those who obtained an invitation, they could enter the Ouyang aristocrat clan. For those who didn't, they could only wait outside the castle. "Congratulations, congratulations," Ouyang Zichen and Jiang Ting's wedding is truly a match made in heaven. Outside the ancient castle, there were important figures from the Ouyang aristocrat clan personally standing there to welcome the guests. More and more people walked over, showing their invitation cards and entering. For those who didn't have an invitation card, they could only stand there and watch. The experts from the sword extinction sect have arrived, all of them exuding sword chi. The person in the lead is none other than the supreme elder of the sword extinction sect, Wu Jiansang, one of the 36 heavenly dipper sovereigns of Grand Xia. His sword arts are extremely bizarre and he has the title of Sword King. Someone recognized the leader of the sword extinction sect as his heart trembled. Celestial phenomenon ascendants were all transcendent characters, it wouldn't be easy for them to show themselves. Hence, the transcendent powers would only send their important figures to attend the wedding. The experts from the multidirectional Thunderwind sect have arrived as well. The experts from the Azure Emperor Palace have arrived. Seems like the transcendent powers of the Azure continent have arrived first. The hearts of the spectators mused as they stared at the figures entering the ancient castle. Within the stone monument, there were many layers of stairs, separated into different levels. For those outside, they didn't have an invitation. The lowest level was at the outermost perimeter of the ancient castle. This place was the largest and belonged to the ordinary transcendent powers. Continuing up, past the 9 steps, there was another level. At this level, there were people from the transcendent powers, including the ordinary disciples and guards of the transcendent powers. Continuing upwards, past the 9 steps, there weren't many seats available. Those who could sit here were all core characters from the transcendent powers and would be accompanied by important characters from the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Above these people was the stage for the wedding ceremony. This group of people would be able to watch the ceremony from a close distance. Layers upon layers of stairs, from the outside of the ancient castle, everything was incomparably clear. Every corner of the castle was within their field of vision, and other than the distance being a little far, it didn't hinder them from spectating the ceremony. Not only that, for cultivators, their field of vision was extremely broad. This little distance to them wasn't considered anything. The Ouyang aristocrat clan's arrangements could be said to be extremely thorough. Representatives from the other regions of the Great Xia's 9-state city have also arrived. There are so many people. Although they all have ulterior motives, they are all polite on the surface. The hearts of the spectators mused. At this moment, a group of young silhouettes walked over from afar. The young man in the lead was clad in white and looked extremely young. He stepped on the red carpet and arrived outside the Ouyang clan's ancient castle before handing over the invitation. The receptionist did not look at the invitation card. An old man was staring straight at the white-clothed young man, staring at him. It's actually him. That old man's heart trembled. Qin Wendian had once visited the Ouyang aristocrat clan as a guest. Back then, he was still extremely weak and had a conflict with Ouyang Ting, causing quite a commotion in the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Hence, there were many in the Ouyang aristocrat clan who had met Qin Wendian before. Now, although Qin Wendian's aura had changed, the old man's eyesight was extremely good. Is there a problem with this invitation? Qin Wendian smiled. The invitation he was holding was from the Mystic Moon Hall. What are you here for? The old man stared at Qin Wendian, as though he wanted to see through him. He knew that Qin Wendian and Ouyang Guangxing had a very good relationship. Back then, Ouyang Guangxing directly fell out with Ouyang Ting because of Qin Wendian. And now, the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan had a marriage alliance. The bride was Jiang Ting, but the groom wasn't Ouyang Guangxing. There was no doubt that Qin Wendian's purpose for coming here was very suspicious. Not only that, this young man had disappeared from Grand Xia for so many years. Now that he had returned, who knew what kind of commotion he would cause? After all, back then he had once caused a storm in Grand Xia, splitting apart the Pill Emperor Hall and using the momentum to destroy the great Solar Qin clan. Naturally, I'm here to offer my congratulations. Qin Wendian smiled. The people beside him had unfriendly expressions on their faces. They were none other than Fan Lu and the rest. Everyone this way, please. The old man's countenance sharpened as he extended his hand to guide Qin Wenyan in. Qin Wenyan stepped out, only to see the old man following behind him, guiding them all the way to the highest level. Instantly, the gazes of the crowd all landed on Qin Wenyan, and there were even quite a few who stood up, staring at Qin Wenyan. This scene caused many who had never seen Qin Wenyan before to feel bewildered in their hearts. What status did this young man have to be able to cause such a commotion? Even if he was an important character from the transcendent powers, he wouldn't be able to cause such a commotion. I think it's Qin Wenyan. I've watched the ranking battle of that year. Yes, it's Qin Wenyan, I've seen him once before. Someone exclaimed, instantly causing a huge commotion. It was Qin Wenyan, the legendary young man of Grand Xia had returned. Back then, he transformed into a great rock and joined forces with Fairy Qingmei and the others to fight against the great Solar Qin clan, unleashing an unparalleled sword art and killing the strongest expert of the great Solar Qin clan. He himself was heavily injured and was on the verge of death, but in that battle, the 3 ascendants of the great Solar Qin clan all died. From then on, the great Solar Qin clan was no longer a part of Grand Xia, and at the same time, Qin Wenyan also vanished from the Grand Xia Empire. His deeds had already circulated throughout the entire Grand Xia. And now, he had actually returned. Interesting, Ouyang Quangxing and Qin Wenyan were like brothers. The conflict between Ouyang Quangxing and his clan was all because of Qin Wenyan. Back then, the Ouyang aristocrat clan used the 7 slaughter puppets to fight for Qin Wenyan. Now that the Ouyang aristocrat clan has grown stronger, they even allowed Ouyang Zichen to snatch away Ouyang Quangxing's girlfriend, Jiang Ting. Now that Qin Wenyan has returned, how interesting. Not only that, back then the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan agreed to form an alliance with Qin Wenyan to deal with the great Solar Qin clan. But because of Junyu's appearance, they betrayed the alliance and didn't act, causing Qin Wenyan to fight to the death. And now, Qin Wenyan has returned. Many who knew of what happened back then all had expressions of interest on their faces. And indeed, at this moment, the gazes of the experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan all landed on Qin Wenyan, as though they were at a loss of what to do. Although Qin Wentian's personal strength wasn't that strong, he had many methods up his sleeves. Not only that, the things he had accomplished before were still fresh in the minds of many. But, you don't welcome me? Qin Wentian swept his gaze over the surroundings. There were many who stared at him with unfriendly gazes. For example, the multidirectional Thunderwind sect, Sword Extinction sect, Wang clan, etc. All of them didn't have a good impression of Qin Wenyan. No matter if it was in the Azure Continent, Sword Reverence City, or Ginkgo, he had offended many major powers and killed many Heaven's Chosen. In addition, it was no longer a secret that Qin Wenyan had inherited the power of the Azure Emperor. Back then, the Azure Emperor also had many enemies. This was also the main reason why Fairy Qingmei had always been active in the shadows when Qin Wenyan vanished without a trace in Grand Xia. In Grand Xia, there were countless people who wanted to kill Qin Wenyan. Not only that, he had a supremely powerful innate technique that nobody had ever seen before. Just this alone was sufficient to cause countless people to want his life. Those who come are guests, please be seated. An expert from the Ouyang aristocrat clan smiled. Isn't the Ouyang aristocrat clan a little too polite? Back then, this man massacred the transcendent powers of Grand Xia. His hands were stained with blood. How can there be a seat for him here? At this moment, a voice rang out. The person who spoke had a sharp aura as his eyes gleamed with sharpness. This was an expert from the Wang clan of the War Continent. Back then, when Qin Wenyan was in control of the Azure faction, in order to prevent the experts from the Hua and Wang clan from gathering in Ginkgo, he killed many of them. In addition to the grudge from the Sword Reverence City, the hatred between the Wang clan and Qin Wenyan was extremely deep. It's Wang Zhan from the Wang clan. He's extremely powerful, one of the 36 Heavenly Dipper sovereigns. His title is the Battle King, and his combat prowess is unparalleled. Not only that, he isn't old and has a lot of potential. He might even have a chance to break through to the celestial phenomenon realm. Qin Wenyan glanced at him. With a flick of his sleeves, an unrestrained cold smile appeared in his eyes as he mocked. Seems like people from the Wang clan aren't afraid of being killed back then. You still dare to bark in front of me? Rumble. Wang Zhan stood up as a towering battle intent gushed forth from him. As one of the 36 heavenly dipper sovereigns of Grand Xia, he had already comprehended a type of true intent. Although Qin Wenyin was the leader of the Azure faction, a junior actually dared to speak so arrogantly in front of him. Wang Zhan stood up, his battle intent towering to the heavens as his aura gushed forth. Wang Zhan swept his gaze over the surroundings. Other than Fan Lu and the others, there weren't any other experts following Qin Wenyin. Killing intent flashed in his eyes as he icily stated, "Arrogant brat. Although your reputation isn't small, you still dare to speak so arrogantly in front of this seat? Killing you would be as easy as slaughtering livestock." A mocking expression flashed on Qin Wentian's face as he indifferently replied, "Is that so? You can try. Since you are courting death, I shall grant you your wish." Wang Zhan coldly spoke. After which, he stepped out as the sharpness from him towered up into the skies. A cold light flashed as a strand of saber intent gushed forth, as though it could sever everything. The experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan naturally wouldn't obstruct him. This was a good opportunity for Wang Zhan to test the depths of Qin Wentian's strength. Bzz. A violent wave of sharpness swept through the air, forcing the spectators to retreat. Wang Zhan dashed towards Qin Wenyin as a cold light flashed through the air. The edge of his saber was so sharp that it seemed as though it wanted to cleave the heavens and earth into two. As the saber light descended, Qin Wenyin didn't move at all. The countenances of the spectators flashed with sharpness. Was this Qin Wenyin really courting death? However, at this moment, a resplendent light circulated in the palms of Qin Wenyin. He lifted his hand and stretched it out in the air as the saber light slashed downwards, wanting to cleave apart Qin Wentian's palm. However, very quickly, the gazes of the spectators froze as they saw Qin Wentian's palm directly blocking the saber light. Qin Wenyin stood there unmoving, as though a terrifying energy was circulating within his palm. 9th level of Heavenly Dipper. The countenances of many in the crowd froze. Qin Wentian's rate of growth was too fast. At this moment, Qin Wentian's palms trembled as a terrifying might erupted forth, shattering the saber light. A gigantic palm grabbed onto Wang Zhan's neck, lifting him up into the air. Qin Wenyin turned his gaze onto Wang Zhan's body as he coldly stated, "What trash?" As the sound of his voice faded, he crushed his palms together as a crisp cracking sound rang out. One of the 36 heavenly dipper sovereigns of Grand Xia, the one who had the title of Battle King, the one who boasted that he could kill Qin Wenyin like slaughtering livestock, Wang Zhan couldn't even withstand a single strike. Staring at Wang Zhan's corpse falling to the ground, the hearts of the spectators trembled violently. How powerful! After a few years, Qin Wenyin had returned in a domineering manner. At this moment, Qin Wenyin turned his gaze onto the experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan as he emotionlessly stated, "I heard that my brother Ouyang Guangxing was imprisoned by the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Is this true?" Chapter 663. Qin Wenyin swept his gaze over to the experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan. His pitch-black eyes contained traces of sword qi, capable of piercing through the eyes of others. Everywhere he passed by, the experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan actually didn't dare to look him in the eye. One of the 36 heavenly dipper sovereigns was insta-killed. The so-called peak of heavenly dipper in Grand Xia was nothing but a joke in front of this genius. Not only that, the current him wasn't even 30 years of age. "Qin Wenyin, are you here to congratulate us or to cause trouble?" An elder from the Ouyang aristocrat clan stared at Qin Wenyin as he coldly spoke. Today was the marriage alliance between the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Jiang clan. This was an important day for the two transcendent powers. They would never have imagined that Qin Wenyin would appear here. "I'm asking you a question." Qin Wentian's countenance grew even colder as a demonic light gleamed in his eyes, causing the person in charge to feel a chill run down his spine. It was as though there were strands of sword intent piercing through his head. "This is a matter of my Ouyang aristocrat clan. Since when did you have the right to interfere?" That elder muttered to himself as he coldly spoke. Although Qin Wenin was famous, his cultivation base was still at the peak of Heavenly Dipper. Right now, they could still suppress him. How could they allow him to be so impudent? Qin Wentian's countenance turned even colder when he heard this. He took a step forward, causing a thunderous boom to echo out, causing the hearts of everyone to tremble. That elder's countenance was as cold as ice as he stared at Qin Wenin. "This is the matter of my brother. You want me to not interfere?" Qin Wentian's voice rang out. He stretched out his palms as a terrifying palm imprint manifested, capable of plucking the sun, moon, and constellations. Resplendent light flashed, containing a terrifying might within. That elder from the Ouyang aristocrat clan erupted forth with lightning, yet the might of the star-seizing palm imprint towered up into the sky, suppressing everything. With a thunderous boom, the star-seizing palm imprint was directly lifted up into the air. "Find someone who can talk to us." Qin Wentian's palm trembled, and with a loud rumbling sound, that person's body was directly sent flying, coughing up a large mouthful of blood. The people who came to watch the ceremony were all shocked. They hadn't seen this person for a few years, and now that he had returned, he was even more arrogant. His strength was much stronger than before. Impudent! Bolts of lightning crackled down from the skies as muffled sounds of thunder rang out. From afar, an expert could be seen walking over. This person was clad in a violet lightning robe and exuded a majestic aura. His steps were as majestic as dragons and tigers, exuding a supreme might as he stepped through the air. A screen of lightning seemed to have appeared in the air, flickering unceasingly. It's Ouyang Mutian, one of the 3 ascendants of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. The hearts of the crowd trembled when they saw who it was. In Grand Xia, celestial phenomenon ascendants stood at the peak, and it was extremely rare for them to show themselves. If it wasn't for Qin Wentian acting so impudently here today, Ouyang Mutian wouldn't even have appeared. He would only stand behind the curtains, spectating everything. Ouyang Mutian's entire body was bathed in boundless lightning bolts. He stood in the air, staring down at Qin Wenin as he icily spoke. "Qin Wenin, I won't bother with you about the matters today. You can leave now." Qin Wenin inclined his head and stared at his opponent. A mocking smile appeared on his face as he coldly spoke, "Hand him over." Just 2 words. Even when facing a celestial phenomenon ascendant, it was still so domineering. As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, a surge of destructive energy gushed over from afar. The crowd turned their heads over only to see an old man slowly walking over. Every step he took caused the hearts of the crowd to tremble. Another celestial phenomenon ascendant. The hearts of the crowd trembled. The old man was none other than Old Xing. He stood not far behind Qin Wenin, his eyes fixed on Ouyang Mutian who was in the air. "Do you think this is enough?" Ouyang Mutian swept a glance at Old Xing, his voice as cold as ice. A light laughter drifted over. Outside the ancient castle of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, a silhouette soared up into the air. This person was extremely beautiful, with a pair of beautiful eyes that could cause people to fall into a trance. This person was none other than Fairy Qingmei. "Is this enough?" Qin Wentian coldly asked. Ouyang Mutian's countenance flickered as he stared at Qin Wenin. Although this person was a junior, he didn't dare to underestimate him. Other than splitting apart the Pill Emperor Hall and destroying the great Solar Qin clan, Ouyang Mutian also knew that the destruction of the 9 mystical palace was done by the subordinates of Qin Wenin. "Qin Wenin, I can give Qin Wenin to you. But don't mess up the wedding today." Ouyang Mutian stared at Qin Wenin, his words causing the hearts of the crowd to tremble. Ouyang Mutian actually compromised? "I've already said that I'm here today to congratulate you." Qin Wenin smiled. "Fine, I hope you will do as you say. If not, my Ouyang aristocrat clan won't allow you to behave so atrociously." Ouyang Mutian spoke as he turned and departed. Ouyang Quangxing wasn't that important to the Ouyang aristocrat clan now. It was fine to hand him over to Qin Wenin. They didn't wish for any accidents to happen during this marriage alliance. This was already Ouyang Mutian taking a step back for the sake of Qin Wenin. Many had expressions of excitement on their faces. Right now in Grand Xia, there weren't many who could make the Ouyang aristocrat clan take a step back. Yet this young man standing there actually did it. An instant later, Ouyang Mutian brought his men over. At this moment, Ouyang Guangxing's robes were in disarray, his countenance was haggard, and the aura within his body fluctuated wildly. How could Ouyang Guangxing be willing to give up after being imprisoned in the Ouyang aristocrat clan? He would naturally resist, and the ending of his resistance was needless to say. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with a cold light. Ouyang Mutian placed Ouyang Guangxing down as he coldly stated, "I'll leave Qin Wentian to you." Ouyang Guangxing walked towards Qin Wentian and the rest. The exuberant aura he exuded in the past had already vanished. He stared at Qin Wentian. "Jiang Ting, she was forced to do this. If I leave just like this, I would never be able to face my own heart." So, Qin Wentian patted Ouyang Guangxing on his shoulders. He didn't say anything more. Upon seeing Qin Wentian walking over, the people at the table all retreated, instantly opening up space for him. Qin Wentian and the rest calmly sat down. Upon seeing this scene, the coldness in Ouyang Mutian's eyes grew even more intense. Flicking his sleeves, he actually sat down on the platform as well. If Qin Wentian still refused to give up today, they wanted to see if Qin Wentian had the guts to behave so atrociously here. The number of people increased as more and more people from the major powers arrived. However, the atmosphere was extremely strange, as many gazes swept over to Qin Wentian and the rest. Today, Qin Wentian brought two ascendants, Fairy Qingmei and Old Xing here. Was it merely to fetch Ouyang Guangxing? From afar, in the depths of the Ouyang aristocrat clan's ancient castle, the sound of a bell rang out. After which, several silhouettes appeared. In the middle were two people clad in formal attire, walking down the steps of the ancient castle. These two were none other than Ouyang Zichen and Jiang Ting. On the left and right, there were people from the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan accompanying them. Jiang Ting naturally noticed Ouyang Guangxing and Qin Wentian. The corners of her eyes reddened as tears welled up in her eyes. Qin Wentian was here to fetch Ouyang Guangxing. As long as he was safe, she didn't care about anything else. The marriage alliance between the two aristocrat clans was something that Qin Wentian wouldn't be able to stop. Hence, she could only compromise. However, at this moment, Jiang Ting saw Qin Wentian smiling at her. How radiant was that smile! After which, Qin Wentian stood up, pulling Ouyang Guangxing's hand. Fan Lu and the rest also stood up, walking behind Ouyang Guangxing as a set of resplendent robes appeared. Fan Lu and Qin Wentian stood behind Ouyang Guangxing as they spoke to the dumbfounded Ouyang Guangxing. "Put it on." Before Ouyang Guangxing could react, Fan Lu and Qin Wentian each grabbed one of his hands as they helped him put on the robes. This scene caused the countenances of the experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan to turn ashen. Seems like Ouyang Guangxing still wanted to cause trouble. "Don't think that I won't dare to kill you." Ouyang Mutian stood up as violet lightning crackled around him. However, Qin Wentian didn't even spare him a glance. He directly pulled Ouyang Guangxing towards the platform, with Fairy Qingmei and Old Xing by his side. Nobody dared to obstruct their path. On the platform, those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan all stood up as a terrifying aura gushed forth, gushing towards Qin Wentian. They also stepped onto the platform, standing behind Ouyang Zichen and Jiang Ting while Qin Wentian and Ouyang Guangxing faced Jiang Ting directly. "Today is the grand wedding of my brother Ouyang Guangxing and Jiang Ting. Naturally, I'm here to offer my congratulations." Qin Wentian slowly spoke, causing the crowd to be stunned. The grand wedding of Ouyang Guangxing and Jiang Ting? Today was the grand wedding of Ouyang Zichen and Jiang Ting. Did Qin Wentian want to forcefully change the groom? Above the ancient castle of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, numerous terrifying auras soared up into the skies as a group of silhouettes appeared. The person in the lead was none other than the Ouyang ancestor whom Qin Wentian was acquainted with. His gaze was akin to 10,000-year-old ice. At the same instant, outside the ancient castle of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, numerous powerful auras gushed over as well. After which, a group of silhouettes soared up into the skies. Among these spectators, there were actually many terrifying experts with a cultivation base of at least at the Heavenly Dipper realm. Qin Wenyan thanks everyone for coming to congratulate my brother. However, there are still some matters that I have to settle first. Would you all please step back a little? Qin Wenyan clasped his hands behind his back as he spoke. Instantly, the spectators below retreated as their hearts pounded. So many experts, was this the power under Qin Wenyan's control? The Mystic Moon Sect, those are the experts from the Mystic Moon Sect, as well as those from the Azure Emperor faction. They were all subdued by Qin Wenyan. There are also many experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan. 5 ascendants appeared at the same time. Qin Wenyan's side has quite a few as well. Fairy Qingmei, Old Xing, the sect leader of the Mystic Moon Sect, as well as the black-robed Old Granny from the Mystic Moon Sect, a total of 4 ascendants. Their peak strength shouldn't be any weaker compared to the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Are they planning to kidnap the bride? How arrogant! The hearts of the crowd trembled, even though spectators outside were incomparably shocked. Today was the marriage alliance between the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Jiang clan. It was a grand occasion. Never in their wildest dreams would they have thought that they would encounter such an extremely rare situation where the bride would be kidnapped. How crazy! This is what true brothers are like. In a fit of rage, he brought so many experts to the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Countless people sighed in admiration. The experts from both sides were in a stalemate, and it seemed as though a battle would erupt at any moment. Ouyang Guangxing clenched his fists tightly as a warm current flowed in his heart. However, he only saw Qin Wenyan patting him on the shoulder. Back then, didn't Ouyang Guangxing also bring people to Chu to help him? There was no need for such words between brothers. Ouyang, do you dare to marry Jiang Ting today? Qin Wenyan stared at Ouyang Guangxing as he asked. Why wouldn't I dare? Ouyang Guangxing laughed maniacally as he stared at the beautiful silhouette standing beside Ouyang Zichen. Jiang Ting, are you willing to marry Ouyang Guangxing? As long as you nod your head, today shall be the day of your wedding. Qin Wenyan asked Jiang Ting. Jiang Ting's eyes brimmed with tears as she nodded her head unceasingly. At this moment, she had already tossed everything aside. The ashen expression on Ouyang Zichen's face had already disappeared from everyone's attention. Qin Wenyan. The Ouyang ancestor coldly roared. Too brazen, he had lived for so many years, yet he had never seen such an arrogant person before. Even if his heart was extremely resolute, he was still angered to the point where his hair fluttered in the wind. What did Qin Wenyan treat this place as? He actually dared to do such a shocking thing in front of the eyes of everyone in the world. Chapter 664. Qin Wenyan coldly laughed when he heard the roar of the Ouyang ancestor. Old fogey, what do you have to say for yourself? Rumble. The aura of the Ouyang ancestor towered up into the skies. Qin Wenyan, a junior, actually dared to call him an old fogey? You've gone too far. Bring Ouyang Guangxing away now and I won't pursue this matter any further. The Ouyang ancestor coldly spoke. Even if he was forced into such a situation, he still wasn't willing to start a war with Qin Wenyan. This young man in front of him had fought against the Great Solar Qin clan and the Pill Emperor Hall back then, and even annihilated the Great Solar Qin clan. Although he had the advantage in terms of combat prowess, he still didn't dare to underestimate this young man. You won't pursue this matter? Qin Wenyan laughed. Back then, you broke your promise to form an alliance and cultivated the ultimate art of Grand Xia. Let's temporarily forget about this debt. You even imprisoned my brother, forcing his beloved to marry Ouyang Zichen. Now you're telling me that you won't pursue this matter? What do you want then? The Ouyang ancestor coldly spoke. Apologize for what happened in the past and leave the Ouyang aristocrat clan. From now on, you are no longer to interfere in the matters of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. The Ouyang aristocrat clan shall be under the control of Ouyang Guangxing. Today's wedding shall continue. Ouyang Guangxing shall marry Jiang Ting. Impudent. The body of the Ouyang ancestor trembled slightly when he heard such arrogant words. His aura towered up into the skies. Qin Wenyan, I've already given you enough face. If you continue to be stubborn, don't blame me for not showing mercy. Mercy? Qin Wenyan laughed. He was truly afraid of him. As for mercy, would this old fogey care about mercy? I'll give you one more chance. Do you agree or not? Qin Wentian's voice was even more domineering compared to the Ouyang ancestor, causing the hearts of the spectators to tremble violently. Boom! Thunder and fire intersected. The Ouyang ancestor was enraged. Qin Wenyan already knew the answer. He turned his gaze over and stared at the two ascendants from the Jiang clan. Today was the day of the marriage alliance between the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Jiang clan, and the two ascendants from the Jiang clan had already arrived. I, Qin Wenyan, am friends with Jiang Ting. I won't be calculative about what happened in the past. Since Jiang Ting and Ouyang Guangxing are in love with each other, I don't wish to harm the two of them. Hence, today shall still be the day of their grand wedding, a marriage alliance. However, I hope that the two of you can choose wisely. Do you want to sacrifice Jiang Ting and form an alliance with Ouyang Zichen, or do you want Jiang Ting to marry Ouyang Guangxing and form an alliance with me, Qin Wenyan? Qin Wenyan spoke to the two ascendants of the Jiang clan. As the sound of his voice faded, the entire crowd trembled. Qin Wentian's words were too tempting. He wanted the Jiang clan to choose whether to form an alliance with the Ouyang ancestor or him, Qin Wenyan. Just based on the current situation, if the Jiang clan wasn't included, the strength brought by Qin Wenyan wasn't in any way inferior to the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Not only that, they had 4 ascendants. As long as the Jiang clan chose Qin Wenyan, their alliance would have 6 ascendants, fighting against the 3 from the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Should they choose 5 ascendants against 4 ascendants, or 6 ascendants against 3 ascendants? This kind of multiple-choice question was too simple, so simple that it caused the Ouyang ancestor to feel a chill running down his spine. A single sentence from Qin Wenyan actually caused him to feel a chill in his heart, as though he was filled with fear. If the Jiang clan chose Qin Wenyan, what would the consequences be? The 2 ascendants of the Jiang clan were also stunned by Qin Wentian's words as their thoughts sped through their minds. The reason why they formed an alliance with the Ouyang aristocrat clan was naturally because of mutual benefits. What could Qin Wenyan bring them? Ouyang Guangxing is my brother, Jiang Ting is my friend. As long as the Jiang clan agrees, I can guarantee that in Grand Xia, the Jiang clan will definitely rise to glory. If you all still choose that old fogey Ouyang, it would mean that you have abandoned Jiang Ting once again. In that case, I will no longer care about the relationship between Jiang Ting and the Jiang clan. In the future, I will treat the Jiang clan as my mortal enemy. Brother Jiang, this brat is trying to sow discord. Don't believe him. The Ouyang ancestor stared at one of them as he spoke. How ridiculous! Is there a need to sow discord? Aren't you overestimating yourself a little too much? Qin Wenyan turned his gaze onto those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan as he coldly spoke. For those who have nothing to do with this, leave the battlefield immediately. As for the others, kill them without mercy. As the sound of his voice faded, killing intent gushed forth. Shameless boasting, this brat is courting death today. Kill him. A towering lightning glow radiated from Ouyang Mutian as a constellation manifested in the air, incomparably resplendent. Within that terrifying constellation, there seemed to be numerous destructive lightning swords that revolved frenziedly, resembling bolts of lightning. Qin Wenyan was too overbearing. He actually dared to act so tyrannically during the marriage alliance between the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Jiang clan. This was simply intolerable. Qin Wenyan, do you really want me to kill you? The countenance of the Ouyang ancestor flickered with coldness as killing intent radiated from him, incomparably terrifying. The 3 ascendants all released their towering auras as the entire sky changed color, enveloped by their constellations. The 2 experts from the Jiang clan furrowed their brows, not knowing what to choose. Senior Qing, Hall Mistress, I'll have to trouble the 2 of you to kill that old fogey Ouyang. Qin Wentian spoke. Fairy Qingmei and the Mystic Moon Hall Mistress nodded their heads as they stepped out, their terrifying killing intent locked onto the Ouyang ancestor. Qin Wenyan wanted the 2 of them to kill the Ouyang ancestor. The other ascendant from the Ouyang aristocrat clan stepped out, wanting to obstruct the Mystic Moon Hall Mistress. However, The black-robed old granny from the Mystic Moon Hall stepped out as a beam of netherworld light shot over. Old Xing helped Senior to kill him. Qin Wendian spoke to Old Xing who was beside him. Right. Old Xing nodded, joining forces with the old granny to deal with a celestial ascendant. Has he gone mad? The hearts of the crowd trembled. Qin Wendian didn't let the ascendants fight one-on-one. He got Fairy Qingmei and the Mystic Moon Hall mistress to gang up on the Ouyang ancestor, while getting Old Xing and the black-robed old granny to gang up on the other ascendant. However, the Ouyang aristocrat clan still had Ouyang Mutian and the two ascendants from the Jiang clan. Did Qin Wendian and the others want to die? Even now, I still believe that even if the two seniors from the Jiang clan don't help me, they wouldn't interfere in the matters today. At the very least, we still have a chance to become friends. Just when the two ascendants from the Jiang clan were about to make a move, they heard Qin Wentian's voice. They stared at Qin Wentian's deep eyes that gleamed with a bright light, and they couldn't help but feel trepidation in their hearts. Back then, this young man was already so terrifying. Now that he no longer had the confidence, would he really dare to cause trouble in the Ouyang aristocrat clan? Also, a single sentence from Qin Wendian gave the Jiang clan more options. As long as they didn't participate in the battle, Qin Wendian wouldn't have to make an enemy out of them. Since you want to die so badly, I shall grant you your wish. Ouyang Mutian soared through the air, appearing above Qin Wentian's head. His resplendent constellation enveloped this entire space, resembling dark clouds of destruction that could crush down at any moment. Zhong Yi, Bing Yu-chan, old clan leader Bailu, I shall leave this place to you guys. Qin Wentian spoke. After which, he stepped out and soared up into the air. In his hands, a blood-colored halberd could be seen. This was none other than the Scarlet Demon Halberd. A terrifying surge of bloodline chi soared up into the skies. A terrifying demonic tempest manifested from Qin Wentian, causing him to become incomparably demonic. Resplendent light revolved around him, unexcelled in this world. What is he trying to do? Great waves of shock rose in the hearts of the spectators when they saw Qin Wendian soaring up into the air, moving towards Ouyang Mutian. Qin Wendian wanted to fight against a celestial phenomenon ascendant? Fighting against a celestial phenomenon ascendant at the Heavenly Dipper realm? Even Ouyang Quangxing and Jiang Ting felt their bodies tightening. At this instant, Qin Wentian's aura had already reached the pinnacle of Heavenly Dipper. The power of his bloodline caused his aura to rise even further, yet it was obstructed by a formless energy, as though he had no way to break through that barrier. This barrier was none other than the barrier of celestial phenomenon. At this moment, Qin Wentian's aura had already reached the peak of Heavenly Dipper. Many experts at the upper 3 levels of Heavenly Dipper felt their hearts trembling. They had never seen such a powerful character at the peak of Heavenly Dipper before. The disparity between the aura of those at the peak of Heavenly Dipper was simply too great. They weren't even on the same level. I'm begging for death. Are you even qualified? The Scarlet Demon Halberd in Qin Wentian's hand was pointed towards Ouyang Mutian. His arrogance was unexcelled in this world, as though he was the monarch of all demons, ruling over everything under the heavens. Bzz. Ouyang Mutian soared up into the air with his constellation in his hands. Lightning sword light ravaged the area, akin to a terrifying tempest. I truly want to see how a Heavenly Dipper cultivator can fight against a celestial phenomenon ascendant. Qin Wentian's body rose up into the air together with Ouyang Mutian. The aura he exuded was akin to a myriad of demonic beasts galloping past. Die! Ouyang Mutian finally made his move. Both of his eyes flickered with terrifying lightning. With a single word, the constellation in the air shot out beams of lightning sword light, transforming into destructive bolts of lightning that annihilated all the experts within it. This was Ouyang Mutian's constellation, the lightning sword constellation. It contained a terrifying destructive might within. Qin Wendian wielded the Scarlet Demon Halberd in his hands, not moving at all. The beams of lightning sword light slammed into him, causing people to not dare to look directly at him. However, just when everyone thought that Qin Wendian was about to be killed, they discovered to their astonishment that Qin Wendian was still standing there arrogantly. Resplendent light circulated around his body, protecting him like an armor. No matter how the lightning sword light slammed into him, he wasn't injured in the slightest. What a weak constellation! Qin Wenin inclined his head and stared at the constellation in front of him. No wonder people in the past said that the disparity between celestial phenomenon ascendants was extremely great. As a celestial phenomenon ascendant, Ouyang Mutian was a hegemon of Grand Xia. But in Qin Wentian's eyes, his constellation was so weak that it was pitiful. Its destructive might couldn't even be compared to a casual strike from those buried immortals at the peak of Heavenly Dipper. Qin Wentian's faint voice caused Ouyang Mutian to turn pale. He felt an incomparably great humiliation. He unleashed his constellation at the celestial phenomenon realm, yet he couldn't even break through the defenses of Qin Wentian's body. If it was me, I would rather not break through to celestial phenomenon than condense such a weak constellation. What's the point of stepping into the celestial phenomenon realm? How lamentable! Qin Wentian's calm voice was like a bolt from the blue, shaking the hearts of the crowd, as well as the two ascendants of the Jiang clan. They all thought that they were the hegemons of Grand Xia after stepping into celestial phenomenon realm. However, a single sentence from Qin Wenin not only shattered Ouyang Mutian's confidence, it also destroyed their pride. Was this the returned Qin Wenin? That demon-level genius who once stirred up a storm in Grand Xia, bringing with him a halo even more dazzling than the constellations back to Grand Xia. Chapter 665. For celestial phenomenon ascendants, they would first comprehend their true intent before fusing their astral novas back into their astral souls. During the process of their astral soul's evolution, they would need to infuse their true intent into their astral novas before they would be able to manifest a constellation. This also meant that the constellation of celestial phenomenon ascendants contained the energy of their astral souls as well as their true intent. Hence, for some stellar martial cultivators with powerful astral souls and true intents, they only needed to use their constellation to suppress their opponents and they would be able to sweep through everything, annihilating everything. Since constellations were formed from astral souls and true intents, there were naturally countless types of constellations. For example, attack-type constellations, defense-type constellations, control-type constellations, etc. Ouyang Mutian's constellation contained the true intent of lightning within and was clearly an attack-type constellation. But even so, the direct attack of his constellation had no way to break through Qin Wentian's defense. Qin Wenin had personally experienced the combat prowess of buried immortals before. He dared to confirm that if those buried immortals attacked with their constellations, the moment they unleashed their constellations, they would definitely be able to suppress everything. There was no need for them to even use their hands to attack. Naturally, the reason why Qin Wenin felt that Ouyang Mutian's constellation was so pitifully weak was because his horizons were too high. After all, Grand Xia was a desolate place in the eyes of the experts of the royal sacred region. Those who just broke through to the celestial phenomenon realm could already be considered as a hegemon. For many people, it was already extremely difficult for them to take a single step forward even after hundreds or thousands of years. Breaking through to the celestial phenomenon realm was already considered an extremely great breakthrough. It was simply unrealistic to expect them to have many types of constellations or to have an extremely powerful attack-type constellation. For those people, they would have long left Grand Xia. The constellation Ouyang Mutian comprehended could be considered one of the simpler ones. It contained the true intent of lightning within and its attack was already considered very powerful. However, Qin Wentian's defense was simply too terrifying. He cultivated the fiend transformation art and had long tempered his body to the point where it was as terrifying as a demonic beast. In addition to his powerful bloodline, in addition to the fact that he had refined the sky demon oracle bone into his body, even if he didn't use astral energy to protect himself, his defense was already extremely shocking. And when facing against Ouyang Mutian's attack, Qin Wentian's body was cloaked with astral energy as well as illusory demonic energy. Just the attack of Ouyang Mutian's constellation was naturally unable to shake him in the slightest. However, the scene before their eyes had a huge impact on the spectators. A peak-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign could actually be so tyrannical when facing a celestial phenomenon ascendant? This completely toppled their understanding. What if Qin Wenyan broke through to celestial phenomenon? Didn't that mean that he wanted to sweep through all the ascendants of Grand Xia single-handedly? For those who came to spectate, there were many representatives from the transcendent powers of Grand Xia. For example, the Wang clan of the War Continent, the Star-Seizing Manor of the Moon Continent, and the Azure Emperor Palace of the Azure Continent. As for the experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan, it was as though they had already forgotten about the battle with the experts brought by Qin Wenyan. They only stared at the battle in the air and understood that the ending today didn't depend on them. Instead, it was the battle between the three peak-level experts. Initially, they thought that they had the advantage, with 5 ascendants against 4. However, with just a few words from Qin Wenyan, the situation changed drastically. 2 ascendants ganged up on one from their Ouyang aristocrat clan. But even so, they initially thought that as long as Ouyang Mutian killed Qin Wenyan quickly, they would still be able to salvage the situation. However, Qin Wentian's strength caused them to feel a chill invading their bodies. Did the Ouyang aristocrat clan still have an advantage? Upon seeing Qin Wentian's strength, the 2 ascendants from the Jiang clan were already destined not to interfere. Nobody would be willing to form a death grudge with such a character. Right now, the hopes of the Ouyang aristocrat clan could only be placed on Ouyang Mutian, hoping that he would be able to kill Qin Wenyan. Ouyang Mutian's countenance turned ashen. He stretched out both his palms as lightning flashed in his palms, drawing upon the power of his constellation, causing the entire constellation to seethe with rage. Die! Ouyang Mutian coldly roared. Instantly, boundless lightning swords slashed downwards, even more resplendent compared to earlier. Bzz! The light circulating around Qin Wenyan grew increasingly resplendent. He had comprehended 4 types of true intents and had even fused them together. Against Ouyang Mutian he wasn't at a disadvantage at all. Numerous lightning swords blasted downwards, unceasingly piercing into the radiance around Qin Wenyan, exuding a terrifying destructive might. The collision of light beams caused the spectators on the ground to feel their hearts trembling. However, Qin Wenyan still stood there steadily, feeling the difference in his defense after breaking through to the 9th level of Heavenly Dipper. How weak! Qin Wenyan stared at Ouyang Mutian as he faintly spoke. I don't mind the fact that your Ouyang aristocrat clan betrayed the alliance back then. Today, I gave you guys another chance, yet you guys don't know how to cherish it. Since you guys believe in strength so much, I, Qin Wenyan, shall use strength to annihilate all of you today. As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wenyan dashed out. Ouyang Mutian's countenance turned ashen. With an intention of his will, his constellation started howling, condensing into a constellation that floated behind him. Boundless energy was channeled into his body as the lightning in his palms condensed into a corporeal violet lightning sword. Lightning danced wildly in the air as he stomped towards Qin Wenyan. He wanted to see exactly how powerful a young man at the peak of Heavenly Dipper could be. In the blink of an eye, Qin Wenyan arrived before Ouyang Mutian only to see his opponent's scarlet demon halberd piercing out. In that instant, the entire scene seemed to have transformed into a dreamscape. Ouyang Mutian felt as though his body was being pulled into the world of this halberd. The halberd strike of Qin Wenyan seemed to have sliced through the void, but the destructive power it contained caused Ouyang Mutian's hairs to stand on end. Die! Ouyang Mutian roared in rage. He had no other choice but to clash head-on. The lightning energy collided with the scarlet demon halberd. In that instant, Ouyang Mutian only felt countless illusions appearing in his mind. He couldn't see the real world clearly. The divine weapon in Qin Wentian's hands was a 5th-ranked divine weapon. When it attacked, it also contained the power of illusions, able to bring one into a dreamscape. Such a terrifying attack wasn't able to stop the scarlet demon halberd from advancing. The spectators only saw the lightning being compressed unceasingly as Qin Wentian's scarlet demon halberd slammed into Ouyang Mutian's body. At this instant, Ouyang Mutian felt despair. He felt the invasion of death. Every part of his body was already corroded by the endless destructive might, as though he was about to disintegrate. At this moment, the despair on his face was exceptionally clear under the illumination of the dazzling lightning, but it was also a shocking sight. I overestimated you. This was the last voice Ouyang Mutian heard. It was the voice of Qin Wenyin. As the sound of his voice faded, Ouyang Mutian's body directly exploded, turning into nothingness. He disappeared into the void just like that, as though he had never existed. At the instant Ouyang Mutian's body exploded, the hearts of the spectators below trembled, including the two ascendants from the Jiang clan. That domineering young man who returned in such a domineering manner appeared in the Ouyang aristocrat clan. With a cultivation base at the peak of Heavenly Dipper, he used an incomparably tyrannical strength to slay the ascendant of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, Ouyang Mutian. Not only that, this might not be Qin Wentian's strongest state. That sentence of him saying that he overestimated Ouyang Mutian indicated that from Qin Wentian's perspective, Ouyang Mutian, who was at the celestial phenomenon realm, might not be an opponent on the same level as him. In that case, how strong was Qin Wentian's strongest combat prowess exactly? This was the question in the hearts of the spectators. How strong was Qin Wenyin exactly? The countenances of those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan were like dead ashes. Today, the marriage alliance between the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Jiang clan was supposed to be the start of the Ouyang aristocrat clan's hegemony over Grand Xia. All of them were filled with excitement and confidence, but never in their wildest dreams would they have imagined that at the start of the marriage ceremony, their dreams would turn into nothingness. The doomsday of the Ouyang aristocrat clan had suddenly descended. The other two ascendants of the Ouyang aristocrat clan were in the midst of battle when they suddenly discovered Ouyang Mutian's death. Their hearts pounded violently as a sense of sorrow appeared in their hearts. They suddenly felt that earlier, Qin Wenyin had indeed given them hope, but he was rejected by them. And at this moment, despair started to corrode their hearts. The black-robed old granny from the Mystic Moon Hall and old Xing were currently surrounding a newly ascended ascendant from the Ouyang aristocrat clan. The black-robed old granny had already been at the celestial phenomenon realm for many years, and her strength was slightly stronger compared to her opponent. In addition to the cooperation of old Xing, she was able to force her opponent into a corner. With just a single glance, Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered, arriving at the battlefield where Fairy Qingmei, the sect leader of the Mystic Moon Hall, and the Ouyang ancestor were fighting. Qin Wenyin, why must you be so ruthless? The countenance of the Ouyang ancestor paled. Are you joking? First, you betrayed us, forcing my brother's girlfriend to marry Ouyang Zichen. Not only that, you even imprisoned Ouyang Guangxing. If I didn't come today, would you have killed my brother to prevent future troubles? Qin Wentian sarcastically spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, the spectators all exclaimed in shock. So it turned out that in the other battlefield, old Xing's rod had already smashed the head of the newly ascended ascendant from the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Old Xing and the black-robed old granny were also heading towards this battlefield. At this moment, it was no longer 2 against 1, but 5 against 1 instead. 2 ascendants have fallen. The Ouyang aristocrat clan is finished. This was the thought that appeared in the hearts of the spectators. The countenances of those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan were all like dead ashes. They stared at the battlefield in the air before shifting their gazes onto Ouyang Guangxing. Qin Wenyin had slaughtered his way into the Ouyang aristocrat clan because of him. At this moment, an intense feeling of regret welled up in their hearts. If the old ancestor hadn't treated Ouyang Guangxing in such a manner, the wedding today would have been between Ouyang Guangxing and Jiang Ting. If that was the case, Qin Wendian wouldn't have come here to mess things up, he would have come here to congratulate them instead. What a beautiful ending that would have been. Ouyang Guangxing was also a heaven-chosen of their Ouyang aristocrat clan. It was just that he had a conflict with the old ancestor, causing the old ancestor to be unhappy with him. Guangxing, persuade Qin Wendian to stop. We know regret. An expert from the Ouyang aristocrat clan spoke to Ouyang Guangxing. Ouyang Guangxing's heart trembled violently when he heard these words. He clenched his fists tightly as he stared at the silhouettes in the air. Today, If it wasn't for his brother Qin Wentian's domineering actions, would the Ouyang aristocrat clan even ask for peace? Most probably, he could only watch helplessly as Jiang Ting was forced to marry Ouyang Zichen. And just like what Qin Wentian had said earlier, the Ouyang aristocrat clan might even kill them all to prevent future troubles. And now, an expert from the Ouyang aristocrat clan was telling him to persuade Qin Wentian to stop? Was this even possible? Chapter 666. Ouyang Guangxing had long seen through the Ouyang ancestor. Back then when the Ouyang ancestor broke the alliance agreement, he already had a conflict with the Ouyang ancestor. From then on, the Ouyang ancestor didn't even look him in the eye. The Ouyang aristocrat clan had already marginalized him. His parents, grandfather and those closest to him were all stripped of their authority, becoming dispensable existences in the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Even his grandfather's brothers and uncles started to give them the cold shoulder. This included them marrying Jiang Ting to Ouyang Zichen and imprisoning him, Ouyang Guangxing. None of these people stood out to speak up for him. Even when Qin Wentian was here, they still acted as they pleased. Only now, when they discovered that 2 ascendants had fallen and the Ouyang aristocrat clan's momentum was already at an all-time low, did these people truly start to panic. Are all of you truly regretting this? Ouyang Guangxing mocked. Guangxing, the blood of our Ouyang aristocrat clan flows in your veins. Could it be that you really want to watch our Ouyang aristocrat clan decline and even walk towards destruction? That person pleaded. The sudden change in the situation caused him to feel heartache. Even though he hated Qin Wentian, he could only plead with Ouyang Guangxing. How old was Qin Wentian? He was of the same generation as Ouyang Guangxing and he could already kill ascendants. Did he really think that the Ouyang aristocrat clan would seek revenge from Qin Wentian? What a fool's dream. When you guys imprisoned me, did any of you ever think that I, Ouyang Guangxing, also have the blood of the Ouyang aristocrat clan flowing in my veins? A mocking smile appeared on Ouyang Guangxing's face. The words of these people were too hypocritical. There's no need to plead with Ouyang Guangxing. This old fogey will die for sure. Qin Wentian's voice rang out, causing the hearts of the crowd to tremble. They inclined their heads and stared in the air. Although the strength of the Ouyang ancestor wasn't bad, he was still in a precarious situation. The sect leader of the Mystic Moon Hall had already landed a heavy blow on him, causing him to cough out blood as his countenance turned pale. Qin Wentian, I'm willing to compromise. Let Ouyang Guangxing marry Jiang Ting and form an alliance with you. Ouyang Guangxing shall inherit the position of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. The Ouyang ancestor hurriedly spoke as his old face turned red. As the sound of his voice faded, the attacks of Fairy Qingmei and Old Xing arrived. It's too late. What qualifications does the current Ouyang aristocrat clan have to talk about an alliance with me? Qin Wentian calmly spoke. Kill! As soon as he finished speaking, he struck out with his palm. A terrifying gigantic palm suddenly appeared in the void, seemingly capable of plucking the sun, moon, and stars, and smashed down with a loud bang. The Ouyang ancestor lifted his palms and blasted out with rage, shattering the palm imprints. However, how fast were the attacks of celestial phenomenon ascendants? The attacks of the other 4 ascendants continued to rain down on the Ouyang ancestor. Guangxing. The experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan all stared at Ouyang Guangxing, yet Ouyang Guangxing's countenance didn't waver in the slightest. Everyone was focused on the battle in the air, all the way until the Ouyang ancestor was destroyed. When Patriarch Ouyang's body fell to the ground, the entire void was silent. Today, 3 ascendants from the transcendent power of Grand Xia, the Ouyang aristocrat clan, had fallen at the same time. This was similar to the Great Solar Qin clan back then. It was just that back then, the Great Solar Qin clan forced Qin Wentian to use all the methods he could think of, borrowing all the strength he could muster. But today, Qin Wentian annihilated 3 ascendants from the Ouyang aristocrat clan. From the start till the end, there was no suspense at all. It's over. 3 ascendants had fallen. The Ouyang aristocrat clan was truly finished. This marriage alliance had become a joke. When Qin Wentian led the 4 ascendants up the stage, His demonic gaze swept over the members of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Everywhere his gaze passed by, no one dared to look straight at him. Scram! Qin Wenyan glanced at the crowd before shifting his gaze onto Ouyang Zichen. Ouyang Zichen's body was trembling. Today was supposed to be the day of his grand wedding, a day of glory that belonged to him. However, from the start till the end, he could only stand there like a wooden puppet, becoming a spectator. Until now, when that pair of arrogant eyes stared at him, telling him, the groom, to scram as well. Such humiliation caused his aura to surge uncontrollably. Arg. Ouyang Zichen. A thunderous roar rang out. After which, a palm imprint slammed into Ouyang Zichen from behind. Ouyang Zichen coughed out a mouthful of blood as his body slumped weakly onto the ground. He stared at the person who attacked him. It was an elder of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. A mocking smile flickered in Ouyang Zichen's eyes as he slowly closed his eyes. How lamentable! Qin Wenyan led his men to kill 3 ascendants from the Ouyang aristocrat clan. However, not a single member of the Ouyang aristocrat clan dared to retaliate and even killed him instead. How lamentable, but this was reality. The winner takes all and the losers are vilified. The 3 ascendants had already died. The members of the Ouyang aristocrat clan didn't wish for their entire clan to be buried together with them. Qin Wenyan stared at the person who killed Ouyang Zichen. He didn't say anything. That person then spoke. The Ouyang aristocrat clan is willing to accept Ouyang Quangxing as their clan lord. The Ouyang aristocrat clan has let down Ouyang Quangxing first. This is also the opinion of all of us. The others nodded their heads. What else could they do? Take revenge and then die together? Qin Wenyan didn't express his opinion. He turned his gaze onto Ouyang Quangxing as he stated, Ouyang, I've already said before I came here today to congratulate you and Jiang Ting. In addition, I also want to inform you to attend my wedding. As for the matter regarding the Ouyang aristocrat clan, I'll leave it up to you. You and Mo Qingcheng are also getting married? Ouyang Quangxing froze. Qin Wenyan smiled as he nodded. Upon hearing the name Mo Qingcheng, the hearts of the crowd trembled. Back then, the heavens chosen of the Pill Emperor Hall, Qin Wenyan had destroyed the entire Pill Emperor Hall because of her. To think that she was still alive. Now that he and Mo Qingcheng were about to get married, the Pill Emperor Hall was going to be doomed. You're really something. Ouyang Quangxing lightly punched Qin Wenyan. Jiang Ting also walked over, pulling on Ouyang Quangxing's hand as she smiled at Qin Wenyan. Wenyan, thank you. Oi, Jiang Ting, don't be so sarcastic. I still have to invite you to be Qingcheng's bridesmaid. Qin Wenyan laughed. Sure. In that case I shall go and be a supporting character. Jiang Ting sweetly smiled. In her heart, she was truly grateful to Qin Wenyan. It was only because of a single sentence from Qin Wenyan that the Jiang clan wasn't embroiled in the storm today. At this moment, the 2 celestial phenomenon ascendants from the Jiang clan felt joy in their hearts when they saw the relationship between Qin Wenyan and Jiang Ting. Personally witnessing the death of 3 celestial phenomenon ascendants, the 2 of them were extremely moved. Those were existences on the same level as them, and not only that, the Ouyang ancestor was even stronger. At this moment, they no longer dared to treat Qin Wenyan as an ordinary junior. To this young man, Grand Xia was simply too small. Ouyang Quangxing turned, staring at those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan as a resolute look flashed in his eyes. Evidently, he had already made a decision in his heart. I don't want to be the clan leader of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Ouyang Quangxing's words instantly caused the hearts of those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan to tighten as their countenances instantly turned incredibly unsightly. However, Ouyang Quangxing continued, however, what you all said is right. After all, the blood of the Ouyang aristocrat clan flows in my veins. I don't wish to pursue the things my clan has done to me. Today, I hope that no one will bear grudges for the deaths of those 3. All grudges shall end here. For those who are still alive, no matter what you have done in the past, I, Ouyang Quangxing, will not pursue it. As for the position of clan leader, I, Ouyang Quangxing, we'll let bygones be bygones. As for the position of clan leader, Ouyang Guangxing, will leave it to my grandfather. Although Ouyang Guangxing felt resentment in his heart, regardless of his grandparents or his parents, they all had an inseparable connection with the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Although he felt resentment towards many in the Ouyang aristocrat clan, many of them had treated him well. However, he wasn't so naive. He definitely wanted power, and he wanted it to be his own. Before this, he had already experienced the coldness of reality. From today onwards, the Ouyang aristocrat clan would continue to exist, but with the help of Qin Wentian's influence, the authority of the Ouyang aristocrat clan would all be in the hands of those closest to him. With regards to this point, Ouyang Guangxing was incomparably resolute. He wouldn't pursue those who had treated him coldly, but it was inevitable that he would cleanse their authority. Good, since you can think this way, we feel gratified in our hearts. The experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan heaved a sigh of relief. After experiencing the ups and downs of life, their state of heart had also undergone a transformation. Now, they could only hope that Ouyang Guangxing, who had a good relationship with Qin Wentian, would be able to lead the Ouyang aristocrat clan back to its former glory. As for the grudges of today, they could only bury it forever. Let's clean up the mess. Guangxing, let the wedding between you and Jiang Ting continue. What do the two seniors of the Jiang clan think? Naturally. The two ascendants of the Jiang clan nodded. Being able to see Jiang Ting's happiness, we are also happy. Hypocrites. Everyone cursed in their hearts, yet no one dared to voice it out. At this moment, Qin Wentian stared at the crowd that came to watch the wedding as he smiled. On the day of my brother Ouyang Guangxing's wedding, let me make an announcement as well. I, Qin Wentian, will be the successor of the Azure faction of the past, and will be the Azure Emperor Palace's Palace Lord. In that case, there's no longer a need for the Azure Emperor Palace to continue existing in the Azure continent. Either you submit, or you vanish. Those from the Azure Emperor Palace can return now to inform your sect to make a decision. The hearts of the crowd pounded violently. After the Ouyang aristocrat clan fell from the ranks of a transcendent power, would the Azure Emperor Palace of the Azure continent be replaced by the Azure faction of the past? Fairy Qingmei's eyes flashed with a smile when she heard Qin Wentian's words. As for old Xing, his body trembled involuntarily. This day had finally arrived. With Qin Wentian as the successor of the Azure Emperor Palace, not only would he be able to regain the glory of the Azure Emperor Palace, he would even surpass it. Reforming the Azure Emperor Palace was only the first step. They all knew that Qin Wentian's target was the entire Grand Xia Empire. This point was also known to those from the Mystic Maiden Palace, but none of them dared to say it out loud. At this moment, they could only sigh in their hearts. If they missed this opportunity, it would never come again. There's one more thing. If there's anyone from the Pill Emperor Hall here today, go back and tell them that I've once said that one day, I will definitely raise the Pill Emperor Hall to the ground. The Pill Emperor Hall can just wait and see. As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, the crowd was once again in an uproar. The Pill Emperor Hall would be destroyed as well? This young man who returned to Grand Xia, what kind of storm would he create in Grand Xia? Chapter 667. 3 ascendants of the Ouyang aristocrat clan had fallen, and Ouyang Guangxing's kin controlled the entire clan. The wedding between Ouyang Guangxing and Jiang Ting was naturally carried out smoothly, but after such a thing happened, the atmosphere was no longer the same. But to Ouyang Guangxing and Jiang Ting, there were already no regrets. If it wasn't for Qin Wentian bringing so many experts here today, the consequences would be unimaginable. Back then when Ouyang Guangxing befriended Qin Wentian, he only felt that Qin Wentian was interesting and had outstanding talent. Who would have thought that today's outcome would be like this? He didn't say the word, thank you. There was no need to use the word, thanks, to express the feelings between brothers. Only Jiang Ting thanked Qin Wentian. After the banquet, the experts from the various major powers all departed, informing their respective clans and sects of what happened here. Very swiftly, this news spread throughout the Azure continent. As for Qin Wenyan, he bid farewell to Ouyang Guangxing after the banquet and led his men towards the Azure Emperor Palace. The transcendent power of the Azure continent, the Palace Lord of the Azure Emperor Palace personally led his men to welcome Qin Wenyan, expressing their willingness to form an alliance. Such an initiative caused many to silently praise the Azure Emperor Palace for its boldness. Based on the brilliance Qin Wenyan had displayed in the Ouyang aristocrat clan, the ending of the Azure Emperor Palace was already decided. By sending their sect to welcome Qin Wenyan, they could gain the reputation of forming an alliance. But if they waited for Qin Wenyan and the rest to enter the Azure Emperor Palace, they would be forced to submit using their strength. Naturally, there was another option. The people of the Azure Emperor Palace could give up all of their foundations and leave the sect, directly handing it over to Qin Wenyan and the others. In that case, the Azure Emperor Palace would become a laughingstock and the Azure Emperor Palace in Grand Xia would still belong to Qin Wenyan. To them, taking the initiative to submit was the best ending. But since the Azure Emperor Palace Lord was able to do this, his state of mind was also extraordinary. The restructuring of the Azure Emperor Palace was already inevitable. When Qin Wenyan ascended the stairs to the Azure Emperor Palace, those who had once made things difficult for him in the Emperor Star Academy were all trembling in fear. However, Qin Wenyan didn't even spare them a glance. They couldn't help but to mock themselves in their hearts. In the eyes of this young man who had grown up, their existences were simply insignificant. Within the great hall of the Azure Emperor Palace, Qin Wenyan sat on the Palace Lord's throne. Fairy Qingmei and Old Xing, the two ascendants, stood on his left and right. Although they were seniors of Qin Wenyan, now that Qin Wenyan was the Palace Lord of the Azure Emperor Palace, in such a formal setting, Qin Wenyan would naturally be the leader. They were also willing to serve as a foil. The sect leader of the Mystic Moon Hall and the black-robed old lady sat on the seats of honor. Zhong Yi from the Zhong clan, Bing Yuchan from the Ice Spirit sect, and the clan leader of the White Deer Institute were seated below. The people in the Great Hall were all important characters of the Azure Emperor Palace. And at this moment, the original Palace Lord of the Azure Emperor Palace stood below, staring at the young man before him as he sighed in his heart. The new generation would always surpass the old. The times were changing too quickly. This demon-level genius who wasn't even 30 yet killed Ouyang Mutian with a cultivation base at the Heavenly Dipper realm. His eyes were so deep and sharp that no one could see through him. In the face of so many ascendants as well as him, the Palace Lord, Qin Wenyan, could still be so calm and collected. This young man had the heart of a ferocious tiger, his ambitions higher than the heavens. A mere Azure Emperor Palace, or even the entire Grand Xia Empire, would only be a part of his exciting life. I heard that there's still a Supreme Elder in the Azure Emperor Palace. Where is he? Qin Wenyan stared at the Azure Emperor Palace Lord as he emotionlessly spoke. The Azure Emperor Palace had existed for so many years, and there were even shadows of the Azure Emperor's faction within the sect. But in reality, this faction only existed in name. The Azure Emperor Palace Lord started. He didn't know how to reply. After a moment of silence, he replied, "The Supreme Elder prefers peace and quiet. Please don't blame him." Might as well. Since he prefers peace and quiet, it's best for him to cultivate in the depths of the mountains. It's too cruel to ask him to bother about the secular world. From today onwards, the position of Supreme Elder will be taken over by Fairy Qingmei. She will be in charge of managing the affairs of the Azure Emperor Palace. Qin Wenyan calmly spoke. The original Palace Lord's countenance stiffened as his heart trembled, silently musing at how ruthless this young man was. In the future, you will take on the role of the Vice Palace Lord of the Azure Emperor Palace. How about it? Qin Wenyan stared at the original Palace Lord, Chu Lanjiang. Chu Lanjiang's heart trembled, but he soon nodded his head, okay. Although he knew this was unavoidable, he couldn't help but to sigh in his heart. As a celestial phenomenon ascendant, he was actually appointed as a Vice Palace Lord. In the entire transcendent power of Grand Xia, he should be the only one with such a title. For the other ascendants, they were either old ancestor-level characters, or clan leaders of their respective sects, or supreme elders. Naturally, Chu Lanjiang could also choose to leave. But if he did so, he wouldn't be able to set his heart at ease. After all, this was the foundation of his blood, sweat, and tears. Not only that, in the depths of his heart, there was still a faint hope that Qin Wendian would be able to bring the Azure Emperor Palace to a new height. Old Xing will still be in charge of the punishment hall. Zhong Yi, Bing Yuchun, Patriarch Bailu, the three of you will assist the Supreme Elder, Fairy Qing, and Old Xing in reorganizing the Azure Emperor Palace. Qin Wendian ordered Chu Lanjiang. Chu Lanjiang naturally understood Qin Wentian's meaning. Reorganizing the Azure Emperor Palace was a must. Wendian, why don't our Mystic Moon Hall join the Azure Emperor Palace as well? At this moment, the sect leader of the Mystic Moon Hall spoke to Qin Wendian, her words causing the hearts of everyone present to tremble. Although the Mystic Moon Hall had always fought side by side with Qin Wendian, they were still a transcendent power that belonged to Grand Xia. Merging into the Azure Emperor Palace, this was no small matter. With regards to this matter, the sect leader and the black-robed old matriarch had already discussed it before coming to this decision. They knew that Qin Wentian's ambition was to unify Grand Xia, and based on Qin Wentian's personality, he wouldn't mistreat them. Since Grand Xia was unified, and all the transcendent powers submitted to the Azure Emperor Palace, what would the Mystic Moon Hall do? Merging into the Azure Emperor Palace was a good choice. Right. Qin Wendian straightforwardly nodded his head in agreement. Sect leader, the two of you will also take on the position of Vice Palace Lords, in charge of the Mystic Moon Hall. The leader of the Mystic Moon Hall started. She stared at the smile on Qin Wentian's face as she bitterly smiled. Seems like you've already made up your mind. The Mystic Moon Hall of the Azure Emperor Palace would still be the Mystic Moon Hall, and they would still be in charge of it. This was indeed the best possible scenario. Qin Wendian smiled as he stared at everyone. Okay, I'll have to trouble all of you for the next few days. You're preparing to slack off again? Luo Huan laughed as she stared at Qin Wendian. When she saw Qin Wendian sitting on the throne, her heart couldn't calm down at all. Back then, she had once saved a young man, yet he had already achieved such accomplishments today. If this didn't happen in reality, she wouldn't even dare to believe it. Sister Luo Huan, you have to help me manage my resources well. Qin Wendian laughed. Right now, Luo Huan also had a lot of authority in her hands. He heard that the Azure Emperor Palace was extremely wealthy, having control over an entire auction street, as well as many transaction pavilions, marketplaces, and inns. The Azure Emperor Palace began a grandiose reorganization. The experts of the original Azure Emperor Palace were all redistributed. The Zong Clan, Ice Spirit Sect, White Deer Institute, Supreme D Clan, and others all expanded their strength. The punishment hall under Old Xing naturally did the same as well. However, the Information Division of the Celestial Lake Palace, with Fairy Qingmei as the leader, didn't increase their manpower. They only took over the Information Division of the original Azure Emperor Palace, and the original strength of the Azure Emperor Palace was split up. Many other matters were extremely complicated, but Qin Wendian didn't have to do anything, handing all these trifling matters over to them. He was happy to be idle. As for the outside world, a huge wave of commotion had already erupted. Qin Wentian's return, annihilating the three ascendants of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, forming an alliance with the Jiang clan, domineeringly taking control of the Azure Emperor Palace. This news instantly circulated throughout Grand Xia, and after all, on the day of the marriage alliance between the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Jiang clan, the various transcendent powers of Grand Xia had sent people over. For a period of time, the entire Grand Xia was in an uproar, discussing about the legendary character who had just returned. In this storm, the Pill Emperor Hall was the first to bear the brunt of it. The Pill Emperor Hall wasn't the Azure Emperor Palace. Back then, Qin Wendian had already left a message saying that he would raze the Pill Emperor Hall to the ground. Now that he had returned, the moment Qin Wendian led his forces into the Pill Emperor Hall, it would only be a massacre. The experts of the Pill Emperor Hall were all filled with trepidation. The first thing they did was to dispatch experts to the Hua clan, the Star-Seizing Manor, the Wang clan of the War Continent, the Shi clan of Ginku, and the Yen Prefecture. More than half of the transcendent powers in the 9 continents sent their experts to pay a visit. The crowd felt as though they could smell a storm brewing. Among these transcendent powers, some had a grudge against Qin Wenyan, and some had something to do with the death of the Azure Emperor back then. Now that they saw a character even more tyrannical than the Azure Emperor rising up, they had to do something. Given Qin Wentian's current domineering attitude, killing 3 ascendants of the Ouyang aristocrat clan and ascending to the Azure Emperor Palace, it could be said that those who submit will prosper, those who defy will perish. If this continued on, they were worried that in the entire Grand Xia, only Qin Wendian would be left. At the same time, in the Ginku continent, there was an extremely terrifying power in the dark. This power wasn't a transcendent power, but none of the transcendent powers in Grand Xia dared to underestimate them. In fact, they even felt a sense of reverence towards them. Today, the Pill Emperor of the Pill Emperor Hall personally came here. Pill Emperor, what brings you here today? In a dimly lit pavilion, the Pill Emperor was led here. The person who received him was a gray-robed man, standing there with his back facing the Pill Emperor, his entire person resembling a specter in the darkness. Dark Shadow Sovereign, how have you been? The Pill Emperor stared at the back of the gray-robed man as he faintly spoke. A light laugh rang out as the gray-robed man turned and stared at the Pill Emperor. The gray-robed man's entire body was shrouded, only revealing a pair of blood-red eyes that exuded a terrifying aura. The Pill Emperor just paid a huge price to exchange for a 5th-rank divine weapon, and now you're here to look for me? How extravagant! The gray-robed man sinisterly laughed. Speak, who do you want me to kill? Qin Wendian. The Pill Emperor spoke. Being able to force the Pill Emperor to hire someone to assassinate Qin Wenyan, one could very well imagine how much pressure Qin Wenyan gave the Pill Emperor Hall. Sure, but I'm afraid your Pill Emperor Hall won't be able to afford it. The gray-robed man laughed. A peak-level Heavenly Dipper Sovereign, even if he has the combat prowess of a celestial phenomenon, can it be compared to the various transcendent powers back then? The Pill Emperor coldly spoke. The Azure Emperor? How can his price be compared to Qin Wenyan? Qin Wenyan is someone who killed a disciple of the Royal Sacred Sect and even managed to escape unscathed. The price to kill him is 100 times higher than the Azure Emperor. You better think carefully. The blood-red eyes stared at the Pill Emperor, causing his heart to tremble violently. Only now did he realize how terrifying this young man was. Chapter 668. The Pill Emperor left the power the Dark Shadow Sovereign was in, returning with disappointment in his heart. It wasn't that he didn't want to kill Qin Wenyan. Back then, he had personally witnessed those experts descending from the heavens referring to Qin Wenyan as Young Master. Now that Qin Wenyan had returned in such a domineering manner, in addition to the price offered by the Dark Shadow Sovereign, the Pill Emperor understood how great the threat of Qin Wenyan was. There was a high possibility that the Pill Emperor Hall would be destroyed. However, the price of killing Qin Wenyan was something he truly couldn't afford. Even if he used up the entire Pill Emperor Hall, they still wouldn't be able to afford it. From this price, one could tell that Qin Wentian's weight in the heart of the Dark Shadow Sovereign was comparable to 100 Azure Emperors. Boo! Drawing in a deep breath, the Pill Emperor increased his speed as he sped towards the direction of the Moon Continent. Right now, every second was extremely precious to him. He didn't know when Qin Wendian would return to the Pill Emperor Hall. The news of the Pill Emperor going to look for the Dark Shadow Sovereign was known to all. But after that, the Pill Emperor Hall in the Moon Continent released a piece of news stating that they were willing to make peace with Qin Wendian and apologize for what happened in the past. In fact, they were even willing to pay any price to compensate Qin Wendian. As this news circulated out, the entire Grand Xia was in an uproar. The Pill Emperor Hall actually admitted defeat. As a transcendent power in Grand Xia, the Pill Emperor Hall was actually willing to apologize and compensate. From this, one could very well imagine how strong the threat Qin Wendian posed to them was. Regardless of whether they were trying to stall for time or sincerely wanted to make peace with Qin Wendian, The Pill Emperor Hall had already lost all their face and prestige. However, it was evident that Qin Wenyan had no intentions of making peace with the Pill Emperor Hall. His voice rang out from the Azure Emperor Palace, telling the ascendants of the Pill Emperor Hall to bring Luo He and the other important members of the Pill Emperor Hall to the Azure Emperor Palace. Only then could the Pill Emperor Hall continue to stand tall in Grand Xia. As the sound of his voice faded, Grand Xia could clearly feel Qin Wentian's arrogance. They also understood Qin Wentian's attitude. It was impossible for him to forgive the Pill Emperor Hall. No matter what the Pill Emperor Hall did, no matter what treasures the Pill Emperor Hall offered, he would never forgive them. This point could be seen from how that young man dragged the demon sword for 100,000 miles, not hesitating to sacrifice his own blood to split the Pill Emperor Hall apart. From this, one could see how deep his obsession was. If he didn't avenge this debt, how would he have the face to marry Qingqing? Things haven't concluded yet. Not long after the announcement from the Azure Emperor Palace, several silhouettes descended from the skies in the Azure continent, paying a visit to Qin Wenyan. If outsiders knew who these people were, they would probably be shocked speechless. These people were all transcendent characters of Grand Xia. Among them were the ancestor of the Shi clan of Gingku, the ancestor of the Wang clan of the War Continent, the ancestor of the Hua clan of the Moon Continent, the Sword Monarch of the Swallow Continent, the sect leader of the Sky Demon sect of the Demon Continent, the Manor Lord of the Star-Seizing Manor. Not a single one of these experts wasn't at the Celestial Phenomenon realm. Such a terrifying lineup was sufficient to cause the entire Grand Xia to tremble. However, on the same day, they all arrived at the Azure Emperor Palace, paying a visit to Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan didn't appear. In the Great Hall, the person receiving the guests was none other than Fairy Qing. It has been so many years, Fairy Qingmei's beauty is even more outstanding than before. The ancestor of the Shi clan smiled at Fairy Qing. He was an extremely ancient expert. It has been so many years, yet you still haven't died yet. Hiding here in Grand Xia, isn't it very interesting? Fairy Qingmei smiled in a seductive manner. The ancestor of the Shi clan didn't mind. In truth, for those with talent, they would have left Grand Xia when they were at the Heavenly Dipper realm, just like Junyu. Although they stood at the peak of Grand Xia, they still knew their limits. Hence, they would rather stay in Grand Xia, protecting their clans or sects, watching as their descendants grew up, hoping to nurture a heaven chosen that was more outstanding than them. Why don't we see sect leader Qin? The ancestor of the Wang clan exuded an intense sharpness. Today, they came here to have a chat with Qin Wenyan, yet they didn't expect him to be so brazen. With so many of them here, he didn't even want to see them. Sect leader Qin is currently very busy and isn't in the sect. Please forgive him. Fairy Qingmei smiled. Even if he's very busy, don't tell me he doesn't even have time to meet with us? The Sword Lord was the leader of the Swallow Swordsmen. His combat prowess was exceedingly high and he was known as the Swallow Sword Lord, the Monarch of Swords. I've already said that sect leader Qin isn't currently in the Azure Emperor Palace. Fairy Qingmei still had a smile on her face, yet her heart was extremely cold. These people came with ill intentions. With so many transcendent characters here at the same time, how could there be anything good? He's really done his best to wash his hands clean. Sect leader Qin returned in such a domineering manner, killing 3 ascendants of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, domineeringly ascending to the Azure Emperor Palace, and even adding the Mystic Moon sect to his banner. Does he have the ambition to dominate Grand Xia? An old monster from the Sky Demon sect coldly spoke, his words causing the gazes of everyone to land on Fairy Qingmei, as though they wanted to see something from her eyes. If Qin Wenyan really had the intention to dominate Grand Xia, wouldn't they have no choice but to form an alliance to deal with Qin Wenyan? In these few thousand years, other than the Azure Emperor back then, only Qin Wenyan had enjoyed such treatment. Fairy Qingmei's heart turned cold when she heard this. What happened to the Azure Emperor back then seemed to be repeating itself on Qin Wenyan. These people were once again trying to form an alliance. I really have no idea what sect leader Qin is thinking. Speaking of the ambition to dominate Grand Xia, Which of the transcendent powers present here doesn't have it? Fairy Qingmei's gaze swept over everyone. Among the transcendent powers of Grand Xia, there wasn't a single one who didn't want to dominate it. It was just that none of them had the ability to do so. Hee, Fairy Qingmei's temper is still the same as before. The Shi ancestor laughed. Beside him, that old man from the Wang clan extended his perception outwards, wanting to scan the entire Azure Emperor Palace. Fairy Qingmei furrowed her brows. What are you doing? He really isn't here. An expression of interest appeared on the Wang ancestor's face as he stared at Fairy Qingmei. Now that Qin Wenyan has left the Azure Emperor Palace, isn't he afraid that the foundation he established would be destroyed? Are you threatening the Azure Emperor Palace? Fairy Qingmei stared at the Wang ancestor as her countenance gradually turned sharp. The Wang ancestor had no fear whatsoever as he stared back at her. The atmosphere in the Great Hall was filled with a tempest. Even if it's a threat, so what? Fairy Qingmei laughed. The reason why Palace Lord Qin left was because, firstly, he didn't expect that all of you would come here together. You all truly regard our Palace Lord Qin highly. Secondly, given the strength of all of you, it's true that you all have the ability to annihilate the Azure Emperor Palace. However, don't forget how Ouyang Mutian died, and also don't forget Palace Lord Qin's age. From what I know, although there are some who have grudges with Palace Lord Qin, other than the Pill Emperor Hall, there isn't anyone else who has a death grudge with Palace Lord Qin. But if the Azure Emperor Palace is destroyed, all of you better think carefully. Would you be able to withstand the bloody revenge of a 28-year-old ascendant? How could Fairy Qingmei's words not be a threat? Her meaning was extremely clear. You guys can annihilate the Azure Emperor Palace, but as long as you haven't killed Qin Wendian, it's best not to act recklessly. How could they not understand the meaning of Fairy Qingmei's words? The Sword Lord coldly spoke. From Fairy Qingmei's words, it's impossible for us to meet with Qin Wendian? That seems to be the case. An evil smile appeared on Fairy Qingmei's face. Qin Wendian was everything to the Azure Emperor Palace. Naturally, they had to prevent these people from ganging up on Qin Wendian. I'll have to trouble you to pass on a message to Palace Lord Qin. His talent is extraordinary, Grand Xia is too small for him. It's best for him not to stir up a storm in Grand Xia. As for the matter of offending him in the past, as long as Palace Lord Qin says a single word, I believe the Wang clan and Hua clan would be more than willing to apologize. The Shi ancestor laughed. Palace Lord Qin doesn't need to interfere in the matters of Grand Xia. Fine, I will pass on your message. Fairy Qingmei coldly laughed. Since this is the case, we will take our leave. The Shi ancestor stood up, and the others all stood up as well. They turned and departed, vanishing from sight in an instant. Faint voices drifted through the air. This Qin Wendian is truly too arrogant, to think that he wouldn't even be able to meet with him. Fairy Qingmei walked out of the Great Hall as several silhouettes appeared beside her. All of them had cold smiles on their faces as they stared at the departing figures. The speed at which they grouped up was truly fast. If we were to invade Grand Xia, I'm afraid these people would do the same thing to the Azure Emperor back then. Old Xing's eyes were cold. Hence, we have to warn Wendian to be more cautious and not let the Azure Emperor repeat the same mistake. In addition, we have to be careful of a certain hidden power. A cold light flickered in Fairy Qingmei's eyes, as though she was thinking of something that happened back then. If it wasn't for the hidden power, the Azure Emperor wouldn't have died. Wendian is even more outstanding compared to the Azure Emperor. History will not repeat itself. Although Old Xing was filled with reverence for the Azure Emperor, he couldn't help but to admit that Qin Wendian's brilliance was many times more dazzling compared to the Azure Emperor back then. This was why the moment he returned, he could cause a commotion in Grand Xia, causing the Pill Emperor Hall to compromise and the other transcendent powers to form an alliance. The moon continent of Grand Xia was still bustling with activity. The Pill Emperor Hall was located right in the middle of the moon continent. Right now, the topic of discussion in the entire Grand Xia revolved around the Pill Emperor Hall because Qin Wendian had returned. The Pill Emperor Hall towered into the skies. Even from afar, one could still see the towering structure of the Pill Emperor Hall. Every time they witnessed this scene, the people of the Moon continent would sigh in admiration at Qin Wentian's achievements. The reason why the Pill Emperor Hall didn't rebuild the Pill Emperor Hall was because they wanted to remember this humiliation. Recently, Shu Ruanyu's state of heart fluctuated. She had already broken through to Heavenly Dipper and had an extraordinary status in the Shu clan. Although she didn't marry into the star-seizing manner and was married to Yang Fan, she gradually forgot about it. Every time she thought back to the culprit who had harmed her back then, she no longer hated him as much as before. Right now, his name had already shaken Grand Xia. The moment he returned, he caused an unprecedented storm and became the idol of countless people in Grand Xia. Shu Ruanyu would occasionally think back to the days when she was kidnapped by Qin Wenin. She would even look at herself in the bronze mirror to admire her own beauty. Being able to attract Yang Fan's attention, Shu Ruanyu could already be considered a rare beauty. Yet back then when that fellow kidnapped her, he didn't even have the slightest bit of desire for her. Every time Shu Ruanyu thought of this, she would feel anger rising in her heart. She didn't know why she would occasionally reveal such emotions. Maybe it was because Qin Wenin was simply too famous. Staring at the great hall from afar, Shu Ruanyu couldn't help but recall these memories. What a handsome fellow! At this moment, one of Shu Ruanyu's sisters exclaimed. Shu Ruanyu cursed in a low voice, "Love-struck fool. Ruanyu is really handsome. Look at that demeanor, that focus, it's as though he's gazing at the Pill Emperor Hall." Shu Ruanyu's sisters continued, staring at a young man not far away. That young man's gaze was only focused on the Pill Emperor Hall, as though the people around him didn't exist. Love-struck fool. Shu Ruanyu silently mused. She turned and stared at the young man her sisters were talking about. And as soon as she saw him, she couldn't shift her gaze away. Her right hand covered her mouth as an expression of astonishment appeared on her face. It's him, he's here. Shu Ruanyu's heart pounded rapidly. Was he going to the Pill Emperor Hall? She stared at the surroundings of the young man. There was no one else but him. Shu Ruanyu's heartbeat quickened. Was he going to do what he did in the past, going to the Pill Emperor Hall alone? Her heart was in a state of chaos, and there was even some worry in her heart. Under her gaze, Qin Wenin walked step by step towards the Pill Emperor Hall, arriving at the top of the 99 steps. Chapter 669. In front of the Pill Emperor Hall, a white-robed figure had his hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the majestic Pill Emperor Hall. The passers-by all had faint smiles on their faces as they stared at him. Was this another junior that revered the Pill Emperor Hall? In front of the Pill Emperor Hall, a silhouette slowly walked over, pointing to Qin Wenin. You can't stay here any longer, leave quickly. Qin Wenin calmly glanced at them. After which he slowly walked forwards, ascending the stairs step by step. The Pill Emperor Hall, he had arrived. Impudent. A cold intent flashed in the eyes of those in front of him as they stepped towards Qin Wenin. Their auras at the peak of Yuanfu erupted forth. Boom! Qin Wenin stomped heavily on the ground, causing the bodies of those in front of him to be slammed heavily onto the stairs as they coughed out mouthfuls of blood, their countenances turning pale. Someone dares to barge into the Pill Emperor Hall. An enraged voice thundered out. The expressions of those in front of him were all filled with rage. Barging into the Pill Emperor Hall was simply courting death. The passers-by all had expressions of interest on their faces. There was actually someone who dared to barge into the Pill Emperor Hall? Did he not want his life anymore? Only Shu Ruanyu watched as Qin Wenin ascended step by step as great waves of shock rocked her heart. Indeed, he was still the same as before, barging into the Pill Emperor Hall alone. Above the Pill Emperor Hall, numerous silhouettes soared through the air. Even before they arrived, a loud voice already rang out. Who dares to be so impudent? Kill him without mercy. The voice of that person was filled with killing intent. An instant later, the experts arrived, but the instant they saw Qin Wenin, the countenance of that person froze as his countenance paled. His body trembled lightly, as though he had just witnessed an inconceivable scene. He had come, Qin Wenin had returned. Once, when Qin Wenin left, he left behind a cold message. The day he returned would be the day of judgment for the Pill Emperor Hall. Was today the day of judgment Qin Wenyan spoke of? They were clearly monitoring the Azure Emperor Palace, and even Fairy Qingmei hadn't left the Azure Emperor Hall. Not only that, all the experts were gathered there. Yet at this moment, Qin Wenyan actually appeared in the Pill Emperor Hall. Did he intend to destroy the entire Pill Emperor Hall alone? The others in the surroundings had also seen Qin Wenyan before. The instant they saw him, they were so frightened that their bodies trembled, their hearts shattered. This young man had once left a deep impression on them. Once, from afar, they saw Qin Wenyan wielding a demon sword and slashing apart that towering great hall. Now, he had returned and he was even stronger than before. He didn't borrow the power of the demon sword and killed Ouyang Mutian, a celestial phenomenon ascendant of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. He used his most powerful attack to kill Ouyang Mutian, and his cultivation base was still at the peak of Heavenly Dipper. He led his men and swept through the 3 ascendants of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, not leaving a single one alive. He brought his men to the Azure Emperor Palace, and the Azure Emperor Palace Lord personally came out to welcome them. The spectators from afar were all dumbfounded when they saw the reactions of the experts from the Pill Emperor Hall. It was as though they were all extremely fearful of this young man. Could it be? The spectators suddenly thought of a possibility as their hearts pounded. Such a young silhouette that could cause the experts from the Pill Emperor Hall to be so fearful. In the entire Grand Xia, there was only one person. Qin Wenyan. The crowd thought of a name as their eyes gleamed with sharpness. That white-robed figure, was that Qin Wenyan? He had finally returned and was now alone, ascending the Pill Emperor Hall. Qin Wenyan didn't pay attention to the reactions of the crowd. He continued upward step by step, and everywhere he passed by, a tempest of sword chi manifested. Boom! As his foot landed, a sword intent manifested. Momentarily, the experts above Qin Wenyan all felt their hearts being pierced by 1,000,000 swords as their countenances turned as pale as paper. Boom! Another step. The faces of the people on the platform were drained of all color. Their hearts were shattered, and despair could be seen in their eyes. After that, their bodies collapsed, falling onto the stairs and rolling down the stairs. They were already dead. They're all dead. The spectators below gradually gathered as their hearts pounded. That young man who had returned was indeed even more terrifying than before. He continued ascending. There was no longer anyone who dared to block his path. However, the number of experts in the airspace above the Pill Emperor Hall only grew more and more as a towering might bore down on Qin Wenyan. His astral souls and astral novas all erupted forth, transforming into a tempest of destruction that bore down on Qin Wenyan. Kill him. As soon as the order was given, endless windstorms descended. Destructive turbulence appeared in the void, crushing the earth. The destructive power seemed to have transformed into a black windstorm. How terrifying! The hearts of the spectators shuddered. The Pill Emperor Hall had turned out in full force, wanting to kill Qin Wenyan. However, at this moment, the white-robed figure inclined his head as he stretched out his palms. In the center of his palms, a resplendent light circulated, as though it could penetrate through the tempest of destruction and the turbulence in the air. That resplendent light transformed into a gigantic palm imprint that could pluck down the sun, moon, and constellations. In the air, at the location where the experts of the Pill Emperor Hall were gathered, an incomparably terrifying gigantic palm imprint manifested, slamming down towards them. With a thunderous boom, it was unknown how many of the experts gathered here died, as the entire area was in chaos. How powerful! He actually became so terrifying. Although the entire Grand Xia was filled with rumors regarding Qin Wenyan, when the spectators personally witnessed his strength, they couldn't help but feel a sense of disbelief. It was rumored that he was only 28 years of age. How heaven-defying was he? At this moment, Qin Wentian's silhouette slowly rose up into the air. His countenance was as calm as ever, and from the start till the end he hadn't spoken a single word. However, his eyes seemed to contain a strange magical power, causing the hearts of those who stared into his eyes to tremble uncontrollably. The surviving experts of the Pill Emperor Hall started retreating. Qin Wenin ascended, while they retreated unceasingly. At this moment, that young man was like a fiendish god. Nobody dared to challenge him. Qin Wenin ascended the stairs, stepping onto the Pill Emperor Hall as he stared at the countless faces in front of him. Among the crowd, Luo He's silhouette could be seen. At this moment, Luo He's heart was numb as she stared at Qin Wenin. Back then, when Qin Wenin slaughtered his way into the Pill Emperor Hall, wielding the demon sword and slaughtering everything in his path, Luo He already knew what a grave mistake she had made. Back then, when she faced Qin Wenin, she only treated him as a junior. She had never truly regarded Qin Wenin in her eyes, even if he was the top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings. But a few years later, when she heard Qin Wentian's name again, she discovered to her shock that she, Luo He, no longer had to look up to this junior of hers. Just like now, when that white-robed silhouette casually stood there, the entire Pill Emperor Hall trembled. How terrifying was this influence? In the entire Grand Xia, other than Qin Wenin, there wasn't a second person who could make the Pill Emperor Hall fear him to such an extent. Just when Luo He was sighing in her heart, the white-robed silhouette coldly spoke, "You actually still have the face to live on. Everything I've done is for the sake of the Pill Emperor Hall." Luo He drew in a deep breath as she slowly spoke. Back then, she had given Mo Qingqing a chance, although the chance she gave her now was nothing but a joke. Qingqing is already a 5th-ranked alchemist. Qin Wenin faintly spoke, his words like a bolt of lightning striking Luo He's heart, causing her breathing to turn erratic. Her countenance turned pale. Her former disciple, the disciple whom she had abandoned to nurture a corpse, had actually become a 5th-ranked alchemist? How ironic was this? She didn't doubt Qin Wentian's words. Given Qin Wentian's current strength and status, there was no need for him to lie to her. I've let Qingqing down. She's truly a good disciple, other than when it came to you, she didn't listen to me at all. Luo He sighed. Qingqing has never mentioned you or the Pill Emperor Hall to me again. Qin Wendian calmly continued, just based on what you did to Qingqing back then, you deserve to die. But back then in Chu, if it wasn't for you, Qingqing would have already died. Maybe she didn't know how to face the consequences. After all, you had once saved her life. If not, the strength Qingqing wielded would already be enough to annihilate 10 Pill Emperor Halls. So, I won't kill you. Destroy your own cultivation base and become an ordinary mortal. Qin Wenin stared at Luo He, causing her to feel an indescribable feeling in her heart. Just based on Qingqing's strength alone, it was enough to annihilate 10 Pill Emperor Halls? You are too confident. A voice drifted over. In the air, a constellation appeared, the Pill Emperor and another ascendant appeared. Qin Wenin didn't look at them, he was still staring at Luo He. I'm giving you the best chance to repent. Don't make me do it. Luo He fell silent. A tear could be seen at the corner of her eyes. No one could understand her feelings right now. It was she who single-handedly destroyed the most outstanding disciple in the history of the Pill Emperor Hall, causing her to stand against her. Initially, she had the chance to marry Mo Qingqing to Qin Wenin. At that time, she didn't even dare to imagine how glorious the Pill Emperor Hall would be today. Everything had been ruined by her. Her arrogance, her conceit, had ruined everything. She was the sinner of the Pill Emperor Hall. She had let down her disciple, the beauty of Grand Xia. Luo He's countenance dimmed as she suddenly laughed. The members of the Pill Emperor Hall turned to Luo He only to see her smiling at her father, the Pill Emperor. Luo He truly have no face to live on. After speaking, a terrifying destructive might erupted from her palms as boundless scorching flames ignited. With a ferocious slap, she blasted her palms into her own body, instantly incinerating it. Luo He coughed out a mouthful of blood, but she was still smiling at Qin Wenin. I've done wrong, but I've done my duty as a master. To me, becoming a cripple is even more terrifying than death. Luo He had a smile on her face as she collapsed onto the ground. She could only use her life to repent. The countenance of the Pill Emperor paled, his rage towering up to the heavens. A terrifying flame descended from the skies, shooting towards Qin Wenyin. However, at this moment, Qin Wenyan's silhouette flickered as he dashed forward like a beam of light. Sword Qi lacerated the heavens and earth as a rain of swords rained down from the skies. Qin Wenyin blasted out with his palms, causing thunderous rumbling sounds to echo out as the silhouettes in front of him were all destroyed. Where do you think you're going? An incomparably gigantic flaming palm imprint descended from the skies, grabbing towards Qin Wenyin. Qin Wenyin lifted his palms as a resplendent light flashed. With a deafening boom, the flaming palm imprint was destroyed. Qin Wenyin was akin to a great rock as he continued flying forwards. In just a short instant, he appeared in front of the demon sword that was stabbed into the ground of the Pill Emperor Hall. I'm back. Qin Wenyin stared at the demon sword. Stretching out his hand, he slid his finger across the body of the sword, dripping his blood onto it. Instantly, the demon sword glowed with a towering light. You hate the fact that the heavens are too low. I'll bring you with me to break through the heavens and fight against the immortals and devils of the 9 heavens. Qin Wenyin murmured. Inclining his head, he soared up into the skies as his blood dripped down the body of the demon sword. He was already 1,000 meters in the air, his hands gripping the hilt of the demon sword. Chapter 670. Qin Wenyan's fingers sliced through the body of the demon sword. Blood flowed unceasingly from his fingertips, swirling around the demon sword. At this instant, a blood-colored light of over 100 meters radiated from the demon sword as demonic qi towered up into the heavens. That terrifying blood-colored halo of light caused the hearts of those who stared at it from afar to tremble in fear. A sigh rang out from within the demon sword. After which, a towering sword keening could be heard as the sword might dance together with the blood-colored halo of light. A few years ago, this white-robed young man transformed into a primordial great rock and split apart the Pill Emperor Hall, leaving the demon sword behind. However, no one was able to pull it out. Now, he returned once again, feeding his blood to the demon sword, as though he wanted to awaken it. This scene caused the spectators of the Pill Emperor Hall to be stunned. Xu Ruanyu stared dumbfoundedly as waves of shock rocked her heart. If she didn't witness it personally, she wouldn't be able to imagine how crazy that young man was. Stop him! The Pill Emperor roared. He and another ascendant of the Pill Emperor Hall, as well as an old man from the Pill Emperor Hall, sped towards the direction of Qin Wenyin. They were extremely fearful of Qin Wenyin. None of them were like the Pill Emperor Hall who had personally experienced what happened a few years ago. Also, no one knew that Qin Wenyin still had a terrifying power hidden in the shadows. If it wasn't for Jun Yu's return back then, they truly wouldn't have wanted to antagonize Qin Wenyin. Hence, they publicly apologized and even offered to pay any price to resolve the grudge between them and Qin Wenyin. Sadly, Qin Wenyin didn't accept it at all. The Pill Emperor was naturally afraid. A few years ago, Qin Wenyin had to transform into a primordial great rock before he could unleash the might of a peak-level heavenly Dipper sovereign. But now, just Qin Wenyan's combat prowess alone was already comparable to a celestial phenomenon ascendant. If he was allowed to pull out the demon sword, the consequences would be unimaginable. 2 constellations hung in the air, resplendent and resplendent. The constellation of the Pill Emperor contained a 9-colored flame, filled with a terrifying destructive might. That was the constellation manifested by the old man from the Pill Emperor Hall. His constellation was pitch black in color, with black flames flickering within it. Amidst the descending flames, an aura of death could be felt. Kill! The King of Dan roared in anger. His celestial phenomenon blossomed with 9-colored light, transforming into a terrifying 9-colored flame that shot towards Qin Wenyin. Qin Wenyin acted as though he didn't see it. Blood dyed the 1,000-meter-long demon sword red. At this moment he could feel the humming of the demon sword, the shrill screeches of the demon sword, as well as the pride of the demon sword. Rise! Qin Wenyan's expression was solemn. His sword trembled unceasingly. He pulled the 1,000-meter-long sword out of the ground. In an instant, a blood-red halo swept across everything. A terrifying sword might soared into the sky and crashed into the nine-colored flame that was falling towards Qin Wenyin. With a loud rumble, the flame exploded and blossomed into a magnificent fiery light. What a terrifying sword energy! The Pill Emperor's countenance turned pale. The demon sword was still the same as before, but Qin Wenyin had grown even stronger. Kill! As Qin Wentian's gaze swept over, those experts from the Pill Emperor Hall abruptly halted their steps. That towering sword might directly penetrated through their bodies, causing their bodies to fall to the ground one after another, as though they were nothing more than weeds. Your cultivation base is no different from them in my eyes. What qualifications do you have to fight against an immortal or devil from the nine heavens? A voice drifted into Qin Wentian's ears. It was none other than the voice of the demon sword. Back then, the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation art was irreversible. It was none other than the demon sword that transmitted its voice to Qin Wenyin. Impart the immortal vanquishing swordplay to him. The great Tao begins from the beginning. How can there be an immortal or devil in the world? You hate the heavens for being too low, why don't you dance with me? Qin Wentian's voice was solemn. Yet another palm imprint filled with destruction blasted towards Qin Wenyin. This palm imprint was inscribed with the flames of death, containing a fearsome pressure of death. Boom! Qin Wenyin stepped in the air, his robes lacerated as a resplendent light circulated around him. It was as though he was clad in a fiend god armor. His body expanded in size, transforming into the body of a fiend god. Roaring at the heavens, he blasted out with his palms as a force as heavy as thunder swept over everything. Boom! The palm imprint of destruction exploded apart in the air. The crowd stared in shock at the silhouette of Qin Wenyin as their hearts turned numb. Even without the demon sword, his attack power was already sufficient to shake the attacks of ascendants from the Pill Emperor Hall. How strong exactly was he exactly? The countenances of the Pill Emperor and that ancient expert turned ashen as they stared at the fiend god body of Qin Wenyin. The resplendent light circulating around him seemed to be indestructible. The two of them stood on the left and right of Qin Wenyin. Nine-colored flames and black-colored flames unceasingly gushed forth, unceasingly descending from the sky. With Qin Wenyin in the center, the entire space around him was filled with destructive energy. You obtained an immortal art again. The voice of the demon sword drifted over when it saw the aura radiating from Qin Wenyin. After which, its tone turned arrogant as it coldly spoke. I hate the heavens for being too low, I refuse to fly. So what if you have truly transformed into a fiend god? The arrogance in its voice towered up the heavens, as though even fiend gods wouldn't be able to control it. Seems like I've overestimated you. Qin Wenyin loosened his grip on the demon sword. He inclined his head and stared at the destructive flames gushing towards him as he spoke with arrogance. Even if I don't need to borrow your strength, I can still annihilate the Pill Emperor Hall. It's just that our encounter can only be considered fate. You hate the heavens for being too low, I want to soar above the nine heavens and fight against all the immortals and fiend gods. When we met, we originally wanted to shatter the heavens, yet you refused to face me. As the sound of his voice faded, the bloodline in Qin Wentian's body erupted forth frenziedly. Behind him, a fearsome shadow of a demon manifested. Summon. As his astral soul appeared, Qin Wenyin inclined his head and stared at the skies. Instantly, a boundless divine glow cascaded downwards, causing the light radiating from him to grow even more resplendent. Numerous fearsome astral warbeasts descended from the skies, exuding an unexcelled might. Kill them for me, Qin Wentian commanded. The demonic beasts trampled the heavens and earth, rushing towards the experts of the Pill Emperor Hall. A towering sword chi manifested around him as he lifted his palms and blasted outwards. In that instant, a destructive might filled every corner of the skies. The destructive flames were all extinguished at the same instant, as though they were shattered by the sword chi. The experts of the Pill Emperor Hall naturally heard Qin Wentian's incomparably arrogant words. They also knew that these words weren't meant for them, but for the demon sword instead. That demon sword was like a demon, it actually had a life of its own, and was conversing with Qin Wenyin. Qin Wenyin was arrogant enough to say that even without the demon sword, he could fight against the experts of the Pill Emperor Hall alone. Since the demon sword refused to dance with him, why would there be a need for him to dance with it when he soars above the 9 heavens one day? As the sound of his voice faded, the sword chi radiating from the demon sword grew even more terrifying. It was as though the demon sword was enraged. The countenances of the Pill Emperor and the old freaks from the Pill Emperor Hall were all incredibly unsightly to behold. Qin Wentian's attack prowess was so strong that it caused their hearts to tremble. If he broke through to celestial phenomenon, how terrifying would he be? Seal of life and death, see life and death. That old freak saw that Qin Wentian had broken free from the demon sword. For the first time, he directly attacked Qin Wentian. The resplendent light of death enveloped the heavens and earth as an ancient imprint shot through the air, blasting towards Qin Wentian. That ancient imprint seemed to contain the power of a constellation, leaving behind a trail of death light in the air. Qin Wentian's palms were no longer his palms of flesh and blood. Instead, they were palm imprints filled with the aura of destruction. With a howl of rage, he stomped on the heavens and earth, suppressing immortals and devils. His body transformed into numerous silhouettes, all of them rushing out at the same time. The seal of life and death was directly shattered as countless star-seizing palm imprints gushed forth with illusory demonic energy, rushing towards that old freak from the Pill Emperor Hall. Qin Wentian's strength didn't merely originate from his usage of true intents. His superiority in astral energy, his bloodline, and his innate techniques were all manifested in all aspects. Finally, when he unleashed his attacks, the might he exuded was truly towering to the heavens. Ordinary peak-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns wouldn't be able to match up to him. Even for celestial phenomenon ascendants who had condensed their constellations, their aura wouldn't be much stronger than his. That old freak from the Pill Emperor Hall faced the endless attacks. His celestial phenomenon energy converged as he frenziedly blasted out with both his palms, defending against Qin Wentian's attack. However, Qin Wentian's silhouette was like a phantom. With a grab of his palm, the entire space seemed to have transformed into an illusory dimension. That old freak from the Pill Emperor Hall saw Qin Wentian brandishing his scarlet demon halberd as he dashed over. Yet another series of afterimages appeared. The countenance of that old freak from the Pill Emperor Hall turned pale. He no longer had the strength to withstand such an attack. Bzz. His silhouette wanted to flee, yet he only saw that the boundless beams of light were already shooting over. His body directly exploded, transforming into nothingness. The Pill Emperor initially wanted to help, but upon witnessing the death of that old freak, his body stiffened as he drew in a deep breath. Although his strength was many times stronger compared to that old freak, Qin Wentian's strength had already completely stunned him. His gaze swept downwards. The astral war beasts had already started their slaughter. Fresh blood dyed the Pill Emperor Hall red, even the setting sun in the sky was dyed red. Everything was the same as the day he left back then. The day he returned would be the day of judgment for the Pill Emperor Hall. Qin Wentian's silhouette slowly descended, landing on the demon sword. He slowly spoke. "Have you thought it through clearly? If you follow me, I won't bring disgrace to you." The humming of the sword intensified. The gigantic body of the demon sword trembled violently as the earth cracked apart unceasingly. A storm of destruction that caused despair to ravage the entire Pill Emperor Hall. It was as though doomsday had arrived. Chi! Deep cracks appeared on the surface of the Pill Emperor Hall. Boundless sword chi gushed forth as the experts below died one after another. The majestic Pill Emperor Hall that spanned over 100 miles started to crumble apart. Bzz. The countenance of the Pill Emperor paled. His silhouette directly soared through the air as an illusory sail appeared beneath his feet. This was none other than a speed-type divine weapon the Pill Emperor exchanged for. Even if he couldn't defeat the Pill Emperor, he could still flee. "Since you are so brazen, I shall be your witness. If in the future, you still can't stand up to the 9 heavens, I shall personally slay you." A similarly arrogant voice drifted into Qin Wentian's ears. The silhouette of the Pill Emperor had already vanished, only to be replaced by a beam of light that slashed the void into two. The silhouette of the Pill Emperor abruptly appeared in the distance as his body was directly torn into two, falling down from the skies. Just like this moment, the voice of the demon sword rang out once more. Qin Wentian still stood arrogantly on the sword hilt, his countenance calm. However, the countless experts outside the Pill Emperor Hall all shuddered involuntarily when they saw the body of the Pill Emperor falling down from the skies. From today onwards, there would no longer be a Pill Emperor Hall in Grand Xia. Chapter 671. Qin Wentian stared ahead. This demon sword was truly arrogant. He had long known this point. Back then when he pulled out the sword from the sword-reverent city, he didn't use a blood sacrifice. This demon sword was even more arrogant than him. Qin Wentian had never seen such an arrogant person before, let alone a sword like this. This sword is extraordinary. It must have a shocking origin. Qin Wentian mused. If it didn't have a shocking origin, how would it dare to say that the heavens were too low? Don't worry, I won't bring shame to your name. However, do you intend to follow me like this? Qin Wentian faintly spoke. The body of the demon sword was over 1,000 meters long. How could it be controlled? Although I'm willing to be your witness, I won't take the initiative to lend my strength to you. I really want to see how you are going to fulfill your arrogant words today. The sword chi radiating from the demon's sword tore apart the 9 heavens. With a shrill howl, a terrifying storm of destruction ravaged the earth. Countless silhouettes from the Pill Emperor Hall inclined their heads, staring at the storm of destruction, their eyes filled with despair. An intense beam of light pierced through the air. Qin Wentian suddenly discovered that the 1,000-meter-long demon sword had transformed into a 3-chi-long sword, radiating a white light that illuminated the skies. It exuded a boundless demonic aura, akin to an evil sword. This sword was incomparably demonic. It whistled through the air, directly piercing into the towering Pill Emperor Hall. Everywhere it passed by, everything was reduced to rubble. When the sword pierced into the Pill Emperor Hall, the entire Pill Emperor Hall had already vanished without a trace. The entire Pill Emperor Hall had been completely destroyed, turning into dust as sand and gravel drifted about in the air. Only the white demonic sword gleaming with a blood-red light remained, piercing through the dust, displaying its sharpness. Qin Wentian glanced at the demonic sword as a demonic smile appeared on his face. After which, he stepped out, moving towards the location where the Pill Emperor died. Everywhere he passed by, the spectators all retreated. The void sail landed on the ground, containing a strand of void energy within it. This Pill Emperor had long prepared a path of retreat. With this void sail, if it wasn't for the demonic sword unleashing its might, Qin Wentian wouldn't have been able to stop the Pill Emperor. Qin Wentian kept the void sail before retrieving the Pill King ring. Nobody dared to touch these items. Qin Wentian even destroyed the Pill Emperor Hall. Who would dare to take his spoils of war? Unless he was tired of living. After returning to the Pill Emperor Hall, Qin Wentian slowly walked towards the demon's sword in the midst of a cloud of dust. The demonic glow emanating from the sword was retracted, no longer radiating any light. It was as though it was just an ordinary sword, devoid of light, quietly standing there. Qin Wentian stretched out his hand and unsheathed the sword. He raised his head and looked at the void. He took a step forward and soared into the sky, disappearing into the void in the blink of an eye. He's gone. The crowd inclined their heads, staring at the disappearing silhouette. Their hearts that were filled with waves of shock gradually calmed down, but as they stared at the Pill Emperor Hall that had turned into dust, they couldn't help but feel their hearts twitching. The next time he returned would be the day of judgment for the Pill Emperor Hall. And now, the day of judgment has arrived. Another transcendent power of Grand Xia, the Pill Emperor Hall, was razed to flat ground. 2 ascendants died in battle, and there was no one left alive in the entire Pill Emperor Hall. All of them were killed by that demon sword. Now that this sword was in the hands of Qin Wenyan, it was unknown how many storms of blood would be stirred up in the future. The Pill Emperor Hall has been destroyed, becoming history. Even now, there were still people who couldn't believe what they had just seen. The Pill Emperor Hall had stood tall in the moon continent for far too many years, yet it vanished without a trace just like that. Ruanyu, you already knew that he was Qin Wenyan. The voice of Shu Ruanyu's good friend trembled. No wonder Shu Ruanyu had been staring at him all this while. So it turned out that he was none other than the young man who had once kidnapped Shu Ruanyu. Shu Ruanyu had a bitter smile on her face. She could only sigh in her heart at the fickleness of the world. If back then she had known that he would have such a glorious future, what would she have done when she was kidnapped by him? More and more people gathered in front of the Pill Emperor Hall. Staring at the majestic ancient hall that had once stood tall in front of them now turned into dust, with not a single trace of it left behind, they were all speechless for a long time. The news of the Pill Emperor Hall's destruction soon spread throughout Grand Xia. The various transcendent powers once again felt uneasy. From Qin Wenyan, they could feel an intense threat. Someone who could destroy the Ouyang aristocrat clan, the Pill Emperor Hall and control the Azure Emperor Palace with a flip of his hand, how could the transcendent powers not feel trepidation in their hearts? The experts from the transcendent powers all became even more enthusiastic. Ever since the gathering of the various transcendent powers in the Azure Emperor Palace, there were signs of an alliance once again wanting to negotiate with Qin Wenyan. And as expected, a voice drifted into the Azure Emperor Palace. 3 days later, the transcendent powers of Grand Xia would visit the Azure Emperor Palace to negotiate with the Azure Emperor Palace Lord, Qin Wenyan. The transcendent powers hoped that Qin Wenyan would give them face and not miss the appointment. Momentarily, the situation in Grand Xia became extremely complicated. There were signs that the various transcendent powers would form an alliance to contend against Qin Wenyan. This caused the spectators to sigh in admiration at Qin Wenyan's strength. In these thousands of years, only he was able to cause the transcendent powers to be so afraid of him. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Outside the Azure Emperor Palace, the various transcendent powers descended from the skies. The lineup this time around was even stronger compared to the previous time. This time around, Qin Wenyan didn't conceal himself. Upon sensing the auras of the various transcendent powers, he led Fairy Qingmei and the rest to the stairway leading to the Azure Emperor Palace as he stared at the silhouettes of the various transcendent powers. The white-robed young man stood there with his hands clasped behind his back. His white robes fluttered in the wind as the transcendent powers stared at Qin Wenyan. Their hearts couldn't remain calm. Was he really as young as the rumors said? Yet, he was able to cause such a huge commotion in Grand Xia. Heroes are young. Palace Lord Qin's talent truly makes all of us perspire in shame. A voice drifted over. Qin Wenyan stared at the various transcendent powers. His countenance was calm as he asked, "Why did everyone come to my Azure Emperor Palace?" Qin Wenyan, recently you have caused so much chaos in Grand Xia. 3 ascendants of the Ouyang aristocrat clan fell. The Pill Emperor Hall was destroyed and the Azure Emperor Palace submitted. What do you want exactly? The Wang ancestor stared at Qin Wenyan, his countenance sharp. Qin Wenyan's eyes slowly turned over, landing on him as he replied, "What has that got to do with you?" The countenance of the Wang ancestor stiffened as he coldly snorted, "Truly the arrogance of the young. Grand Xia will no longer allow you to behave so atrociously." An evil smile appeared on Qin Wenyan's face as he mockingly glanced at the Wang ancestor. "Who the hell do you think you are? Are you even qualified to speak to me in this manner? You?" The countenance of the Wang ancestor stiffened. He didn't expect that even with so many experts here today, Qin Wenyan would still be so arrogant. "Qin Wenyan," the Sure ancestor called out, "the transcendent powers of Grand Xia have always lived in harmony with each other. You have gone too far." "Gone too far?" Qin Wenyan turned his gaze onto the Sure ancestor. "In that case, I should forget what the Pill Emperor Hall did to me back then? You guys are truly shameless." Fairy Qingmei couldn't help but to mock. In Grand Xia, the strong preyed on the weak. Which of these transcendent powers didn't swallow up countless others? Now, they actually dared to say that Qin Wenyin had stirred up trouble in Grand Xia. If they had the strength, they would have done things even more ruthlessly than Qin Wenyin. Not only that, up until now, Qin Wenyin had yet to touch any of the transcendent powers that had nothing to do with him. Regardless of the Pill Emperor Hall, Ouyang aristocrat clan, or the Azure Emperor Palace, the grudges between them were extremely deep. Even before he touched the benefits of these transcendent powers, they had already started to gang up on him. Let's get back to the main topic. What do you want? Qin Wenyin calmly asked. We cannot allow such a storm to continue in Grand Xia. Qin Wenyin, given your talent, why do you still want to stay in Grand Xia? The Shi ancestor stated. Do I still need your permission to stay here? Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with sharpness. The Shi ancestor shook his head. That's not my intention. This time around, I came here to negotiate with you. We cannot allow any more transcendent powers to be destroyed in Grand Xia. I know there were some transcendent powers that offended you in the past, and they are willing to compensate you. When you can bully others, you will bully them, but when you can't, compensate them. The leader of the Mystic Moon Hall coldly laughed. This is already our concession. The Shi ancestor stated. What if I don't agree? Qin Wenyin narrowed his eyes as he stared at the Shi ancestor. If my information isn't wrong, you should be someone from the Chu country under the control of the Green Cloud Pavilion, right? This time around, the reason you came back is for your wedding with Mo Qingqing. The Chu country is your homeland, your family and friends are all there. The Wang ancestor coldly stated. As the sound of his voice faded, an incomparably ferocious tempest erupted forth from Qin Wenyin as a terrifying demonic qi towered up into the skies, gushing towards the Wang ancestor. His eyes gleamed with a demonic light as his killing intent gushed forth. The various transcendent powers all silently cursed the Wang ancestor in their hearts. The moment he said those words, things would definitely go south. The Wang ancestor suddenly felt the demonic qi soaring up into the skies, as well as Qin Wentian's gaze. His heart also trembled slightly, but he soon regained his composure and coldly snorted, locking gazes with Qin Wenyin. The Ouyang aristocrat clan forced my brother's wife to marry someone else. I only killed the 3 main culprits and didn't touch the other members of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. In the Azure Emperor Palace, I didn't kill a single person, nor did I spill any blood. Only the Pill Emperor Hall was destroyed because of my blood feud with them. Back then, the Wang clan tried to hunt me down several times, but I still haven't settled my grudge with them. You said you are here to apologize, but now, you are actually threatening my clan? Qin Wentian's voice was filled with an icy killing intent. Although he wanted to unify Grand Xia, he had never thought of massacring the other transcendent powers. He only wanted to make the transcendent powers submit to him, just like how Grand Xia was back then. He had never thought of causing rivers of blood to flow in Grand Xia. But now, even before he could settle the score with the Wang clan, the Wang ancestor had already threatened his entire clan. No matter what I say, if Grand Xia suffers any more troubles, you shall bear the consequences. The Wang ancestor's voice was ice cold. Send our guests out. Qin Wenyin swept his gaze over the crowd as he coldly stated. Everyone, please leave. Fairy Qingmei coldly stared at the crowd. Since the Wang ancestor had already investigated Qin Wentian's clan, it was evident that he wasn't the only one who had such intentions. Qin Wenyin, are you sure you want to do this? The Swallow Sword Lord Sword Qi was ice cold, whistling through the air. Qin Wenyin slowly walked away. He didn't turn back. This caused the countenance of the Swallow Sword Lord to turn incomparably cold as he stated, Everyone, he doesn't give you any face at all. Let's leave. The eyes of the various transcendent powers flickered with killing intent as they departed. They didn't dare to act recklessly. If they failed to kill Qin Wenyin, the consequences would be unimaginable. Chapter 672. The transcendent powers of Grand Xia gathered at the Azure Emperor Palace to threaten Qin Wenyan. If Qin Wenyan dared to encroach on the transcendent powers of Grand Xia, they would join forces to deal with Qin Wenyan. This news caused a huge commotion in Grand Xia. Everyone wanted to see how the insufferably arrogant Heaven's Chosen would respond. However, Qin Wenyan didn't reply, nor did he destroy any more transcendent powers. However, a major event happened in Ginkgo. Because of the appearance of the royal mausoleum, the various transcendent powers of Grand Xia still had their troops stationed in the surroundings. Although those who entered the royal mausoleum wouldn't be able to walk out alive, they still kept a close watch on the situation. And now, in the process of their surveillance, a power actually moved into the ancient kingdom and chased away the troops. At the same time, they paid a huge price to hire many skilled craftsmen to appear in the ancient kingdom and rebuild it. This matter instantly attracted a great deal of attention. Those experts from the various major powers who were monitoring the Azure Emperor Palace came over. After which, they received news that the Azure Emperor Palace of the Azure continent was going to relocate, and the new location was none other than the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia. And as expected, not long after this news circulated out, experts from the Azure Emperor Palace arrived at the ancient kingdom one after another, directing the rebuilding of the ancient kingdom. This news instantly caused a commotion, engulfing the entire world. The Azure Emperor Palace moved to the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia. For tens of millions of years, not a single transcendent power dared to encroach on the ancient kingdom. The meaning behind the Azure Emperor Palace's actions was extremely clear. The entire Grand Xia could hear the voice of the Azure Emperor Palace. Moving to the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, wanting to become the king of Grand Xia once again. This could be considered Qin Wenyan's strongest retaliation against the various transcendent powers. After that day, it was as though Qin Wenyan had vanished completely. He didn't directly respond to the transcendent powers of Grand Xia, but this time around, the entire Grand Xia could see his determination. I want to dominate Grand Xia. Who would dare to touch the Azure Emperor Palace? Most probably, at this moment, the transcendent powers wouldn't be able to sleep in peace. Because of the appearance of Qin Wenyan, the transcendent powers of Grand Xia interacted with each other more frequently than in the past few hundred years. No one dared to obstruct the reconstruction of the ancient kingdom. Not a single transcendent power dared to take the lead and oppose the Azure Emperor Palace. They had once gone up to the Azure Emperor Palace to tell Qin Wenyan not to touch any of the transcendent powers of Grand Xia, yet they didn't tell Qin Wenyan not to rebuild the ancient royal palace. Right now, Qin Wenyan didn't take the initiative to create trouble and only wanted to relocate to the ancient royal palace. If they were to obstruct him, wouldn't that infuriate Qin Wenyan completely? No one knew. In the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, the craftsmen and craftsmen were busy working day and night. In the air outside the ancient kingdom, there was a void sail with a white-robed figure standing on it, observing everything that was happening. Other than Qin Wenyan, Yun Mingyi was also there. The unification of Grand Xia will not change its name. Your wish will naturally be fulfilled. The things I want to know, when will you tell me? Qin Wenyan stared at Yun Mingyi as he asked. I won't say anything at all. Yun Mingyi's countenance flickered with a smile. Her limpid eyes stared at Qin Wenyan as she placed her hands on Qin Wenyan's arms in an extremely intimate manner. Unless one day, I become your woman. Qin Wenyan furrowed his brows. With a flick of his sleeves, he pushed Yun Mingyi's arms away. Get down. Qin Wenyan indifferently spoke. Yun Mingyi froze for a moment before her countenance returned to normal. She walked down from the void sail and stared at Qin Wenyan. Am I so unattractive? I treat you as my friend. Qin Wenyan emotionlessly spoke. After which, he turned and the void sail arced through the air, instantly vanishing from Yun Mingyi's sight. In the western regions of Grand Xia, there was a desolate mountain range with a few chaotic cities around it. In this territory, there was a desolate area that was rarely visited by humans. It was a secret area of the Great Xia dynasty. The Grand Xia Empire had existed since ancient times. It had countless cities and was flourishing, with the 9 continents being the most prosperous. However, in the vastness of Grand Xia, there were also secret realms that had yet to be discovered. Countless experts had entered these secret realms before, but for those who entered, it was extremely hard for them to exit. No matter how strong they were, these secret realms were known as death grounds. The Devil Statue Cliff was one of the secret realms in Grand Xia. It was rumored that the Devil Statue Cliff was a sacred ground for the Devil Path, and there was once an extremely powerful devil that walked out from there. There was an ancient legend about the Devil Statue Cliff. In the past, a great war between immortals and devils occurred here, and eventually, immortals and devils fell here. Devil cultivators suppressed the immortals and used a supreme devil statue to suppress the immortals, creating the Devil Statue Cliff today. Throughout the history of Grand Xia, there would always be some characters who entered the Devil Statue Cliff, but all of them only managed to step into the periphery before exiting in a hurry, not knowing the secrets of the depths. As for those who entered the depths of the Devil Statue Cliff, only a few of them managed to exit. And even if they did, they would all become crazed characters, their minds in a daze. At this moment, Qin Wenyan arrived at the entrance of the Devil Statue Cliff. His calm eyes flickered with a hint of longing. That last Bai Qing had disappeared in the Devil Statue Cliff. Wasn't her guts too big? She actually came here with Fan Lu and the others, and even now, there was no news of her. To Qin Wenyan, Bai Qing was like a younger sister of his. That silly lass didn't hesitate to place a blade on her neck to release him from the Bai residence, and even broke off relations with her father and elder sister. Every time he thought of Bai Qing, Qin Wenyan would feel pain in his heart. Only this lass Bai Qing could cause Qin Wenyan to feel a deep sense of tenderness. Little lass Bai Qing. Staring at the towering statues in front of him, Qin Wenyan drew in a deep breath. The grand wedding was imminent, Qin Wenyan shouldn't take the risk. Especially since the Devil Statue Cliff was a forbidden ground of Grand Xia. He shouldn't risk his life. However, his return to Grand Xia this time was firstly to complete his wedding with Qingqing, secondly to find Bai Qing, and thirdly, to settle the matters of Grand Xia. If he couldn't ascertain Bai Qing's safety, he would feel extremely uneasy. Back then when that lass cultivated the chaotic art of the Heavenly Devil, she still didn't forget to protect him. On the Heavenly Fate Rankings platform, she also protected him, fighting for him. Even when he injured her, she still cried out for Wenyan Gij. These memories were still vivid in his mind. How could he forget such feelings? The Devil Statue Cliff was extremely vast, spanning a radius of a few hundred miles. Qin Wenyan stared ahead as a resolute look flashed in his eyes. After which, he stepped out and entered the Devil Statue Cliff. 1,000-meter-tall devil statue stood before him. It was like an ancient devil that was guarding the entrance to the Devil Statue Cliff. A gust of wind gusted by as Qin Wenyan entered with his sword strapped to his back. At the instant he entered, a terrifying devil qi gushed forth. Instantly, Qin Wenyan felt as though he had entered a world of devils. Numerous devil statues stood guard in all directions, their eyes staring at Qin Wenyan, causing his heart to shudder violently. There are so many entrances, and each entrance leads to a different heaven and earth? Qin Wenyan stared at the entrances in front of him. He didn't hesitate and rushed out, but he didn't enter the depths of the Devil Statue Cliff. Very swiftly, when Qin Wenyan inclined his head, the space above him was filled with devil statues. Right now, he couldn't tell which direction he was heading in, nor could he find the exit. BZZZ 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 BZZZ. Abruptly, boundless sound waves appeared in the air, as a terrifying devil might awakened. In that instant, Qin Wenyan only felt his heart shuddering. Shifting his gaze forward, he saw an incomparably gigantic devil statue there. This devil statue was illusory and seemed to be able to move. Devil chi swirled around it, and the devil sounds it spoke penetrated through space, seeping into Qin Wenyan's ears. That pair of eyes filled with devilish intent stared at Qin Wenyan. With just a single glance, the astral energy in Qin Wenyan's body was in a frenzy, as though there was a terrifying devil will gushing into his sea of consciousness. A boundless amount of energy gushed forth as terrifying rumbling sounds rang out. Qin Wendian only felt a towering pressure pressing down on him. In that instant, he felt as though he was hallucinating. Numerous supreme devil statues were directly rushing towards him, blotting out the sun. Qin Wendian stepped out. Instantly, a terrifying sword chi tempest engulfed the heavens and earth. With a thunderous boom, one of the devil statues was destroyed. With 2 steps, the earth trembled as rumbling sounds rang out unceasingly. That chaotic devil statue frenziedly tore apart everything in its path. With 3 steps, a storm of destruction engulfed this entire space. However, the devil sounds continued to reverberate in the air, and the countless devil statues continued to press down on Qin Wendian, seemingly never-ending. There's no form of existence, everything is a devil will. With a devil barrier in my heart, the devil statues are endless. As long as my state of mind is clear, the devils will not be able to suppress me. When Qin Wendian stepped out for the 7th step, a surge of sword intent towered up the heavens. He clasped his hands behind his back and stared at the devil statue before him as he advanced step by step. No matter how powerful the devil statues tried to press down on him, they couldn't do anything to him. Countless devil statues frenziedly rushed over, but before Qin Wendian, there seemed to be a supreme light that shone brightly. That was the will of clarity. His state of mind was clear and bright. The devil barrier wouldn't be able to affect his heart. Qin Wendian continued forward, allowing the devil statues to press down on him. He didn't stop. He entered from the entrance of the gigantic devil statue and continued moving deeper into the depths of this devil cave. No matter how dangerous the devil statue cliff was, or how mysterious it was, if Bai Qing was trapped here, he would bring her out. But if Bai Qing died here, no matter whose territory the devil statue cliff belonged to, he would spare no expense to destroy it. After stepping into another dimension, Qin Wendian didn't feel any relief at all. In fact, he felt even more danger. In this vast space, devil statues could be seen everywhere, suppressing everything. Darkness devil chi danced wildly in the air as the devil statues opened their eyes and stared at Qin Wendian. Their terrifying auras frenziedly bore down on Qin Wendian. Rumble! At this moment, a devil statue moved, directly stepping out from the towering cliff. Its gigantic body lunged towards Qin Wendian as it punched out, manifesting a gigantic devil head that smashed towards Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian's palms shone with the resplendent light. He lifted his palms and punched out, shattering the devil statue. His other arm grabbed out, slamming into the devil statue, causing it to explode. Boom! The earth trembled as the devil statues on both sides of the cliff trembled. After which, they uprooted themselves from the ground as boundless devil might gushed forth. These devil statues all lunged towards Qin Wendian. There was no end to them. If you all want to be a devil, I shall transform into a devil today. Qin Wendian's body grew violent as his demonic qi towered up into the clouds. With a stomp of his foot, he soared up into the air as a myriad of silhouettes appeared at the same time. Boundless divine light flashed, illuminating the entire space. Countless palm imprints blasted out, causing the void to tremble, destroying everything. Qin Wendian took large strides forward, rushing forward. He wanted to see how mysterious and terrifying this devil statue cliff was exactly. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.